All right, this is Heirs to Heresy, Part 5. Where we left off, we had taken the road out of the Parisian countrysides to the city of Royan to find a. Oh, immediately Jazzy has to go off because Mackie is being a nuisance. That's fine. I'll still continue to speak. Um, yeah, so basically, I'll go back a little bit. Basically, in fleeing the secret tunnels beneath the Beaumont's house in Paris, these kind of like old like smuggler tunnels led you out into the countryside just outside of Paris, the like fields of its various like farmers, and particularly the farmer who managed the homestead where this emerged out into seems to have been like an old contact or like servant slash associate of the Beaumonts, that there were other houses in the countryside that had those like tunnels connected to, but they had all like intentionally been collapsed after the Beaumonts were like wiped out by the king, except he'd kept his open just on the slight hope that he would still be able to help someone in need if it ever came down to it. Though it was agreed to collapse the tunnel after your passage through. You were given enough provisions to last you some time on the road, and you had decided to travel to the port city of Royan further downriver, to follow up on a rumor that the farmer provided you guys with, that there is a smuggler who could possibly get you safe passage to the Iberian Peninsula. However, he knew nothing about the actual smuggler's identity, though was aware that a contact of the smuggler, a like ne'er-do-well, was known to like frequent a tavern in Royan known as the Basilisk Den. Didn't know the identity of this contact, just knew that that's where they seemingly preferred to drink. So if you wanted to make contact with a smuggler, you'd have to find this contact. And then through a mistaken understanding of the journey rules, we kind of journeyed to the city of Royan. We have since gotten those rules clarified to us. Thank you, Alan Barr. But we're not going to retcon any of the stuff that happened before, because I'll give you guys some free advancement points for those criticals that were rolled previously. But we did end with the group's arrival in Royan, and there was an established detail that I threw out there, which was upon arriving, like moving through the city, Esteval would have noticed small signs that there may possibly be a Templar spy network in the city. Like subtle indications of things. I didn't listen back to that part of the recording, so I forgot the specific detail Kevin provided. But that's not as like crucially important. It's just like the nature of the fact that there is supposedly this network in town. So that's where we left off. It's been about, I think, a week since you guys left. So we'll just say, in the interest of not like being strict with the bookkeeping, just for simplicity, that it's the following Sunday. Which I know that Jazzy was asking about if it's a Sunday, because I think you regain some faith points on Sundays if you have fewer faith points. Isn't that right? Like, yeah, let me pull up the rule here.
I
Uh,
think faith points, but also health, which might also, or like stamina, which might
oh, that's
also
right.
be important given how badly we
That's
were
right.
beaten.
Yeah, you do regain one faith point every Sunday morning. But yes, thank you for the reminder about health. I'm pulling it up right now just to see the
Because I'm
specific.
at 4.
Yeah, it's your stamina. Like you guys took some like heavy fucking blows in your flight from Paris, and I mean 6 days on the road, nonetheless. Like hiking to Royan, it's you guys are fucking tired. Like you're worn down. I imagine you're pretty like filthy. Even Elias is probably got a little bit on the ruffled side.
He's
Um,
deeply ashamed about it.
yes. So every Sunday morning you heal stamina equal to your vitality plus athletics. So you may heal that many points of
Oh,
stamina.
this is gonna take a long ass time.
Mhm. But yeah, again,
I heal one.
mhm. Wanted to give you guys the distinct experience of like, let's get cocky at the start, get the shit kicked out of us, and really be like, oh yeah, I know it hurts. Okay, let's play it. Let's be chill. But anyway, that aside, before setting the scene of where we're cutting to, another mechanical point of order is that you guys are currently sitting pretty at 5 pursuit points. And if you hit 6, it does mean that there will be some dramatic confrontation with the forces that are pursuing you at a moment of my choosing. 6 isn't the cap. Like, you can gain more than 6 points, but it's just if you hit 6, I am well within my privileges to basically have something pop off. So if I don't spend them soon, any point that gets added to that is going to knock you guys over the threshold. Just keeping that in mind. But let's say that you guys are in Royan, and just a little bit of overview. Royan is a very large town. It's basically a city. It is a major port along the Seine, and it is effectively like, save for the actual city that's built at the like opening to the river or to the ocean, it is very much like the port town, especially for Paris. So unlike some villages you may have been passing by on your way here, this place is bustling and also stacked with French soldiers. But I think we'll begin by setting the scene at night. It's evening. It is a cold, rainy evening. Just there is water coming down from the sky in sheets. It's, by this point reaching late October. The throes of autumn are already wrapped deep, especially as you get closer to the sea here. And so as like, people in this more common quarter of Royan kind of dart to and fro with their hoods up, standing under like little like awnings, or just dashing in the dimness between the orange glow of the various buildings around the quarter. There is one building that stands out, the wind rocking a little wooden sign that hangs from a chain out front, depicting a scaly creature with a crested crown on its head, with little jewel red eyes and just belching this green miasma. The tavern of the Basilisk's Den, in this more rundown, one might say, region of the city. Not quite fully impoverished, but definitely a haven of smugglers and thugs. There are some rough types around here. Before I check in with what you would all like to do, I do want to ask some like clarifying questions about the scene here, primarily in y'all's appearance, because how are we handling your armor? Are you wearing it? Have you like tucked it away? I'm totally flexible on like some of these things, because you probably managed to get some basic like additional clothes at some point in your travels, and means of storing things, but obviously that, within reason. So I'm curious to see where everyone's like head is at regarding what you've visually look like and how you've been moving through the countryside and what you look like in the city now.
I feel like given everything, Torben's probably still wearing his chainmail, but probably under a cloak, be a little more or a little less conspicuous.
That makes sense. So like definitely like if the cloak was off, you are, if like even when you move, like there is the audible slight sound of chainmail beneath, but it's not like visibly out there for all to see. But it's pretty easy to tell on like if someone actually like give a damn about looking at you.
I mean, Torben isn't exactly
Yeah,
inconspicuous
he's
at the
not.
best of
No,
times,
he's
so
definitely not. What about Esteval?
Esteval also has similar story, chainmail, and then a traveling cloak over it, nondescript. No, trying not to broadcast Templar affiliation. Um, but I don't know how to deal with the shield
I was going to say,
necessarily.
like, when things of like your collection of weapons and your shields and all that, are those like hidden under cloaks? Have those been like tucked into bags? Did you acquire like a hand cart from the farmers that you've like that you made, or like somewhere that you have like tucked it in? I don't know. Like, what do we think?
Um, I mean, the Mason axe is not something that that Esteval's probably going to hold on to.
Mhm.
But I feel like just pretending to be mercenaries, unaffiliated,
Mm.
uh, either a little better armed than highwaymen, but uh, I think there were mercenary companies around this point in time. We could probably try
Oh
and
no, there absolutely was, and I would even argue that the part of Royan you guys are currently in, this is as good a place as any to at least look like somewhat armed and unscrupulous about coin. I mean, because this is full of people and probably some mercenaries here and there. So it wouldn't draw as like many looks as someone being armed in like a normal peasant neighborhood. What's the deal with Elias?
I think the same, except that he is still wearing like the Templar uniform, and he is like wearing a cloak over it. Like he's
Mhm.
not like just fully showing it, but like it could be seen if he's not careful or if something has happened. But I think he still refuses to take that off. Um, I think sort of similar to Esteval, I think he only has his sword. At like weapon wise at least. And I think the shield like sort of tucked away on the back, like cloak thrown over it. So it might even look like a bag to people who don't know better, although I suspect that to people here, like they know it's a shield and they know, what that means.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think sort of the same deal as Esteval, but the uniform or like the white tunic is still there, but hidden for now.
Hidden. Good to
Ish.
know. Hidden-ish. Good to know. Yes, if an errant wind catches your cloak unexpected, you will have several people see the red cross beneath. But I,
Mhm.
I like it. Good to know. I think I want to defer to what everyone is most interested in doing. It's possible that you all are going to the Basilisk Den at this moment. Um, but also if anyone wanted to like maybe like ask any prying questions about Royan or like the spy network itself, because Esteval is like suspecting that like that's something you guys could leverage possibly. I'm open to it. Or what do we think? Are all hands on deck for the Basilisk Den, or is other things transpiring? It could have happened like earlier in the day too. It doesn't have to be like right at this exact moment.
And just for clarity, we do think the Basilisk Den is probably where that spy network is
No, no,
situated.
no, no, no,
Oh,
no. The you think that the Basel Zen is where the contact of that smuggler is known to frequent. The spy network is just in Royan. You as a learned member of the order and knowing your street lore and all that is like you've seen the signs that there is a spy network of the Templar order that has a presence here. Um,
smugglers, spies, they're all the
they're
same
all the
thing.
same.
Yeah.
Though a spy network might very well have useful information about the thing you're looking for anyhow. As like a brief overview, just so we all understand what I say when I mean like spy network, is there are different types of like spy networks in history, though the one that is like of relevance here is like effectively like a network of like locals that have maintained like safe houses and caches and information networks all over Europe to like report to the Templar headquarters in Paris. And so it's like a local network, not quite like military intelligence, but like quite literally a group of informants, ministers, and precepts who could possibly be contacted if that was something anyone was interested in.
Oh, definitely. Elias is going to get in some spy work. So,
Mm.
yeah, I'll try looking a little bit more into that. I think the detail that we said was something about the way that the church had displayed, the local chapel had displayed their cross or
Mm.
modified it in some
That's right.
way. So with that detail in mind, I think Esteval would probably head to the chapel, um, and start a search or an inquiry there.
I love it. What I want to say is that while Esteval's off doing that, I'm going to zoom out of it and introduce a test to represent this. Um, to represent you making contact with them. This will be it'll be a difficult test, which means it's a value of 21. And I will require the use of the insight skill, but you may add any attribute you desire to this.
Can we say that I help if Elia is also going to do that?
I will let you help if you are specifically not. Well, actually, this is a good question, because if you and Torben, or sorry, if Torben wants to go to the Basilisk's den, right? Like, and you want to help, I'm gonna say then you're with Esteval and Torben goes to the Basilisk's den. But if you're all sticking together, then I'm fine with like people helping Esteval in this, so long as they meet the requirements.
Yeah, I think Elia would much rather try his luck with people loyal to Templars and smugglers.
Right.
So he's absolutely, if Esteban was like, I think there's people here that are still loyal to us or like to the Templar ideal, then absolutely Elia's like, yeah, of course they are. We're the good guys. I will help with that. And instead of like some criminal who's doing bad things against God's will, you know.
Yeah, yeah, sure, Elias.
Um,
Okay. Yeah, sure, buddy. And I assume Torben's going where his buddies are going.
Yeah, I don't think he'd want to leave them alone.
Makes sense. All right, cool. Then, uh, Elias, since you have the requisite stat requirement, you may choose to impose a benefit on his roll from the list, which if you need me to post that again, I can.
Um, I think I'll do a reroll so we can maybe get a crit, I guess.
Oh, okay, yeah, so you can he can reroll any number of his dice after he rolls. All right.
Sure.
Then yeah, and just to let you know in advance, what the consequences of failure are in this situation is nothing dire. It just represents like you don't make contact this day. Like the time is like spent at, like it's a little wasted. So there's nothing immediately perilous about this, I'll say.
Cool. So intellect makes sense to me here. Because I think we had mentioned that Esteval was only aware of this because he'd been doing a little bit of not full on spycraft back at Paris, but he's learned a little bit about recognizing the signs. He's going to call on that education.
That makes sense to me. All right, go ahead and roll.
7 and 4 on the dice makes 11. Intellect 4, insight 3 is 18. You said it was 20.
21.
So I'm going to re-roll the 4.
Okay.
And I got another 4. So
alas. The almost like oppressive feeling that the downpour casts through the streets of Royan, just pelting you with cold autumnal rain, kind of makes everything feel like more closed in, from like the street to the actual buildings themselves. And given the size of Royan and given the presence of the king's soldiers that are moving about, there's a point where it's like you guys almost turn a corner directly into a group of soldiers who are going down the street and manage to hold yourselves for a moment. And you have to like take a pause, and you are unable to make headway. I will give you this, Esteval, at least to give you some information, which is that even though you have failed to make contact on this day, you are certain this local network has not been burned, that it's still like intact. You have seen no signs or implications that it was here, but it's since been rooted out by the king's forces or anyone else. You think that it's possibly gone to ground. You might have to keep at it, but on I think by like the late evening, you have to call it quits.
these things take time.
Monsieur Novell, who I imagine you have kept underneath, like cradled underneath your robe to shield from the pelting rain, just squirms a little restlessly.
It's all right, Nevi. We'll find you a nice juicy rat somewhere. I'm sure there's plenty of them in the city.
What now?
Basilisk Den?
I love the
Makes
idea, the implication that like Elias has been around being like, oh yes, like we're doing the net, like yeah, we're gonna find everything's gonna go great, and then it's like the efforts are much more difficult. Nothing happens, and it's just like, wait, so we do have to go talk to thieves?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's probably just sort of been like he's probably since we went to a chapel, like he's just been praying and just like fully expected this to work. Like obviously someone's gonna see how pious I am and how I'm obviously a Templar and show up and I was like, wait, what?
I will stack onto this just for the sake of the tension of it because you did in Esteval's narration. This makes sense for Elias. You said you're praying specifically because you mentioned visiting like Catholic like sites like churches and all that. I'm going to need one of you to make a faith plus religion test at a difficulty of 18 because if you fail, that means that the priest suspected your Templar nature, and you will increase your pursuit points. If you fail, you'll get that +1 pursuit point. But if you succeed, otherwise none. No one suspects a thing.
I'll help you, Elia.
Yeah, I'll roll. Um,
What benefit are you going to give Elia?
Um, religion. Oh, you said faith religion.
Yep.
I will also give a reroll.
a
Okie
reroll.
dokie. Difficulty
Okay.
of 18. This is a challenging test.
Okay. Well, let's see if the Lord is with me. That is behind. Oh, it's a crit. Nine. Two
Hey,
nines. The Lord is with
hey, the Lord is with
me.
you. Both you and
I'm
Esteval
gonna
can
get
mark an
canceled
advancement
for
point.
this at some point.
Mark an advance point. Hell yeah.
I'm
Um,
not gonna re-roll those two nines, because that seems like playing with fire. But yeah.
mhm, mhm. I just think you are such a good devout little boy that it's like you are. Well, no, I'm not going to say this because you rolled a critical, so I want to defer to you because you get to kind of like with the whole deal with criticals, as we mentioned before, is like with added skill or a flourish. So in like this way of like not garnering suspicion from the Catholic Church in moving through Royan, like how is Elias like showing off that capability?
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's I think it's the fact that, whoever like the chaplain or whoever is like sort of tending to this chapel, right? I mean, they're human too. And I think there's just something about Elia's like genuine like piety, but like just enthusiasm and sort of love for the topic that they start talking. And, like, I think by the end, they're just sort of kind of like almost having like a nerd out where they're like quoting passages from like the Bible that they found like especially interesting. And, like the chaplain is like, yeah, like this sermon or whatever. And Elias sort of like adding. And I don't think that, like, I think he's conscious enough to sort of keep it on a level where he's like obviously devout, obviously into this, but it's not like you're a super educated person that shouldn't be here. Like he just keeps it kind of from being suspicious, but he's basically like just connecting with this person on that level where that person doesn't want to suspect you anymore because they're having a good time and they don't want to ruin that with, oh, wait, I should like rat you out, right? They're just like, I want this person to be a good, nice person. Like that's what I want. So that's what I'm gonna believe is sort of, I think, the vibe that we're getting.
I love it. Torben, when the group is later in that evening moving to the Basilisk's den, being a large and armed man yourself in a neighborhood full of like ne'er-do-wells and thugs, what is Torben's I guess like body language is the thing I wanted to say, but I more so mean like in a place full of like people who, despite your size, cast like leering glances at you, and this is clearly like a rough and tumble place. Like, how does a man of combat yourself stride through this kind of territory?
Utterly confidently.
Love it.
He doesn't want to show a single moment of hesitation because
Mm-hmm.
that's what they're waiting for.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. When you arrive at the Basilisk Den and you enter, it's immediately apparent that this is home to a motley crew of of patrons, as naturally befits this kind of rough and tumble neighborhood. It is a cramped little space. Like when you walk in, you kind of has like a few steps down. It's dimly lit. There's a hearth at like the far end that just is like has like a low smoldering fire. There are a couple of candles around. There is a second floor with a small just kind of like balcony of like tables and stools that like look down here, but it's just like packed. The air smells smoky of just like fatty meat and like beer and wine. It is just full of people who are drinking from mugs clustered together. You can see that the barkeep is moving around the space, kind of this like rotund, heavier set man, in just like a the standard kind of like smock apron of an innkeep, little kind of like white cap on, just moving around with a pitcher to refill. This place has this like bustling atmosphere, but even as you enter, like you still get a couple of like leering sideways glances, not from any necessary suspicion of your nature, but just by prospect of like everyone here seems to leer at everyone else. This tavern is one spilled drink away from a brawl. What do you do?
Elia is kind of like not quite hiding behind Torben, but absolutely doing that thing where you're like the introvert friend at a party and you're like, I'm so deeply uncomfortable, and this is the person that looks like they know what they're doing, so save me. So I think he's just sort of inched himself a little bit behind Torben and just looks like deeply, deeply uncomfortable.
Torben would be looking for who looks like the most dangerous person in here besides us.
Oh, interesting. What do you mean by dangerous?
I'm thinking prison rules.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. Gotcha. I love it. Yeah, I mean, there are some like various mean looking people in here. Like, you definitely have your what we could maybe call like rank and file thuggish sorts for this kind of place that you would see in every city across the fucking world. But I mean, like, you do have like, what makes this like a motley crew is that it's like, yeah, this clearly has like a criminal element running through this area. So like maybe there are some like bodyguards. I don't know. I kind of want to make this like a little bit of like a paint the scene for everyone to establish details of just like with which is individual perspectives, like one person each. Who's the meanest looking person here in your opinion?
there is one fellow sitting near the back who has a severely like a old severe burn scars on his face, which to Torben's eye means he's a survivor, and those are dangerous.
I think we see somewhere else, we hear like something shatter on like glass shatter on the ground and then like a hearty belly laugh. And like the camera sort of pans almost to see what's happened. Um, I think someone is standing like on the table, like clearly, drunk out of their mind, has like dropped their glass, and someone else almost like kind of laughing, kind of like where you're like, oh, I gotta appease my buddy or he's gonna start shit. Like kind of that vibe immediately puts like another glass in his hand. And I think when we see that hand, it's like full of rings. And one of them seems like it might have been at some point like a signet ring of like an heirloom, but it's like not taken care of, right? It's like chipped, it's gross, it's bloody probably, or whatever is on it. And I think to Elia, there is this combination of, first of all, this person is being rude and loud, which, like not adhering to etiquette means you're dangerous and bad. And the level of where it almost seems like they might have been someone at some point. So what have they done to no longer be in that house is his sort of worry.
I think there are a pair of just big Nordic sailors for hire. Um, One of them is probably bald and has those blue ink tattoos just across his face and arms, and the other is almost the exact polar opposite. Just has like full on leonine mane of hair and a beard that's got even like metal clips in it, even to sort of help keep it under control. And they're playing probably a dice game that they're only playing between themselves because everyone knows they have loaded dice. But if you try accusing them of cheating, well, let's just say you don't. And if you do, those are the last people you'll ever accuse of cheating.
I love it. That's really good. So with this patronage at the Basilisk's den, you all clock at different figures. Torben, with that in mind, do you still consider the man at the back of the room with the severe burn scars to be the most dangerous looking to your opinion? Or would you like to select one of the other options that have been presented for you?
He sees Nordic people, he
Mm-hmm.
assumes they're automatically more dangerous.
No,
He's not
you're
biased at all.
extremely reasonable. What do you do?
He's going to go greet them in Danish.
Torben will go wandering through the packed crowd. Do Esteban and Elias follow, or do they not get a chance yet?
I think we'll sit down quietly. If we did manage to scrape up any kind of money, then a couple mugs of beer just to make it look like we blend in a little bit.
Mm. Did you manage to scrape up any money? This is a really good question. I mean, you had, about a week on the road. You passed by, like, there were probably other like little settlements on the road to Royan. How would you have scraped up any degree of coin? I'm kind of intrigued by the
I kind of
possibilities here.
I kind of want to steal uh Torben's idea from a couple sessions ago and just sell off, probably my axe.
Mm. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think that could have easily transpired during the journey, and it's not something that I need to attach a mechanic to. I'm going to just say that effectively, you just have probably just like a handful of coin. Like it's like real low, right? Like it's not a lot to do with it. You can probably buy you a couple of drinks here, but your money situation isn't like great,
Yeah.
but it's enough. It's enough to kind of eke out something here. Yeah, I think you and Elias managed to find miraculously a place to sit here, just what can barely be considered a table, a little bit more than a plank mounted to some stands, like that is just tucked away at a narrow dark corner of this den. Couple of like rickety old beer stained stools that you two can kind of like huddle. You're almost like pressed up against one another, which creates a form of like intimate confidentiality as you two speak amidst the buzz of the drunken tenor of the room. You manage to pull a seat down. I think the barkeep who does the rounds every so often, comes along with just a rag to like, you know, mop up any spill that is at the table that you're currently at, tucks it into his like a little like leather cord around his waist. And he just says, welcome, welcome, come in. What you want?
A couple of beers, please.
Couple
Just
of beers.
whatever you have on house.
Are you?
Elia just sits there like military rigid, like disdain just oozing from every fiber of his being. And you can see him look at this man with like a very clear look, like, I don't want anything you have touched ever in my life to be near me, and says the same.
You got coin?
Sure do. And
Yeah.
we'll pass him over a couple coins.
Takes them, puts them in a
Also,
pouch.
If anyone asks, we're looking for work, not ship style. And we'll, just pull up a little bit of our sleeve to show some of the chainmail, just to be like, keep up the air that we're, mercs for hire.
The barkeep looks, at the chainmail, looks back at you, and he's putting the coins away, and he says, "What sort of work do you prefer?"
Anything requiring strong arms or a sword?
Well, you can certainly ask. It's none of my business, and don't be. He nods his head at where you showed the chainmail. Goes, just don't be making a ruckus around here, and we don't have a problem. You get me?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Of course, we're not going to start a ruckus. We just try to be called to end them, honestly.
Well, like I said, feel free to ask her for work, or you'll find no such from me. My business is this tavern only, and I have no interest at this moment in hired hands. I don't need the muscle.
Of course. God be with you, good man.
He turns like to like, to go, get drinks and disappear from him, but he stops, like turns a little bit. He says, like I said, if any fights break out tonight and you do anything to quash them without making the situation worse, you'll have my gratitude.
Understood.
He just turns and walks away. West the gorge is rising in Elliot's throat from disgust.
Yeah, Elliot's just like, just like the ick is palpable. And I think he will lean over, like not even lean over because we're so close, but just kind of like lean like the tiny bit of an inch closer to Esteban and say, I don't think we should be here. Or drink anything this man has to offer.
I would love to agree with you. And if there was any other place we could be, then I certainly think that would be the place to be. Unfortunately, we don't get to make that choice. Just think of it as a stranger version of the Abbey.
There are criminals here. Look at them. Look at how they're dressed and behaving, or shall I say, not behaving. And I think again we sort of hear like that belly laugh, just like visceral reaction from Elia, where he's like, "Ugh, that's loud and rude."
Well, there were criminals back at the Abbey as well. So
No, there weren't. There were only men of God. It doesn't matter what you were before.
right. Well, these are all just men of God waiting for their calling.
Well, they're not going to find it here.
Perhaps you'd be surprised at what one can find in the bottom of a glass. And I think either by now or now, Esteval will, Mr. Neville will be like just hanging out on whatever they've got nailed to the wall, and Esteval's just trying to keep him calm, just with like little scritches and stuff. But I assume he might be hungry as well.
Mm-hmm. I think when the barkeep comes back just to pour your drinks for you, he sees the cat and just like without prompting, at some point as he's doing the rounds again later, you see that he has just like he take like a piece of like dried cured sausage and he just like breaks in half and like pinches off like a little tiny bit and just like just puts them like on a little like wooden dish that he sets next to Monsieur Novell.
The cat thanks you.
I think that is like the only moment we just very briefly see Elia be like, oh, good, normal behavior, and then probably belly laugh again and immediately goes back to, oh, no, I hate this place. I hate it. I hate it.
Torben, you are going to go over to these Nordic sailors. Before you
Yes.
do, I want to check something real quick. I'm going to ask you. I'm going to present this your meta knowledge for you, Ben, just because this is a passive test. I'm calling for. I rarely do passive tests, but in this one, I'm kind of introducing it, which is to say that like I love the way you phrased who Torben visually saw as the most dangerous people in the room. This is a test to see if Torben notices the actual most dangerous person in the room, because it's not who he would expect on a first glance. Because again, I'm revealing this meta knowledge for our dramatic irony. There is a spy following you guys, and I want to see if Torben, in surveying the space, notices. So this will be an awareness test. It's going to require effort, so it'll be a 15 or higher needed. But you can use whatever attribute you think makes sense.
Awareness. I think intellect makes the most sense.
Okay, very good. Go ahead and roll.
That's a 1 and an 8, so 9 plus 4.
So not the cigar. You do not clock this person, but we see that there is someone who walked into the Basilisk's den not long after you guys, after a good enough pause, and where they shack up, they keep eyes on all three of you. So while Torben fails to notice this person, maybe we'll see if any of the other Templars notice them later. But for now, Torben, you approach these two Nordic sailors at like effectively not a table, it's a barrel in the like in like the middle of the room. They've pulled up some chairs and they have just cups and handfuls of dice, and they are playing a very common game. They are just taking turns, shaking up the cups, slamming it down, looking at the dice, playing with one another, laughing and drinking. Although as you begin to approach, that air of confidence you have, I'm sure is something that is almost just palpable to the people you approach. So I think that they're aware of you walking up to them. I think one of them, the one that is like shaved, bald with all like the blue tattoos, it's just you said you were reading them in Danish.
Yes.
What do you say?
Brothers, what brings you so far south?
Brothers, he says. What this one says, and just like looks at you, and he just being like, eyes you up and down. What exactly makes you think we're alike, you and I?
The same blood flows through our veins.
Same blood, he says. You hear this horseshit? The other one, like the other one, the thick leonine mane and beard, just like waves a hand and just goes, "Oh, come off it, Ingvar. Pay no attention to this drunk fool. No chair, you'll have to get your own." And he just like nods and like is just aware of you, and he says, "Sailors, tending to work. You're something of a different sight. What brings you here?"
Also looking for work on land, preferably.
Oh, Ingvar, the one who was first identified, the Baldwin goes, "Oh, looking for work inland. You have the audacity to claim you're of our blood. You should be on the ocean. You should be on the sea. You should be on a fucking ship." This guy's drunk off of his fucking mind, while his companion is probably drunk, but is not as visibly drunk.
I don't disagree, brother, but unfortunately, I am stuck babysitting.
He grumbles something, like a curse under his breath. Um, but the other one says, "I am called Steinar, and you are
Torben.
Torben. Yeah, well, if I had work to offer you, I would. Alas, I don't. Don't have much leads in that regard either."
That's too bad. I thought perhaps your work was of the sort you wouldn't speak of to an outsider.
Think, oh, interesting. What are you implying here?
I'm assuming they're mercenaries.
Ah, this is a good question. Are they mercenaries? I think the second one, who, yeah, Steinar was his name. I couldn't remember it for a second. Steinar like looks at you for a moment and just says like, "Well, times are hard. Honest folk have to make coin one way or another."
Hard for everyone.
Mm. Just looks at you. And then he looks over at Ingvar. Ingvar's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
I am a good hand with a sword.
Is that right? Good hand with a sword he is. Fuck. Steinhardt shakes his head and just says, "Well, the ship we've most recently worked on has no need for mm, hired swords and that kind of thing. You would have to ask around the docks if you were looking to get work, or perhaps you could ask in the more mercantile circles. There's always, I imagine, well, as I understand it, caravan season is coming to a close with the season. So you might be out of luck there if you're not looking to be on a ship."
Oh, wait, 1 second. We are looking to be on a ship, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
Where might your ship be headed, friends?
Ingvar says, like it says, "Oh, the fuck should I know? I just pay. I pay. I spend the coin they give me. I go wherever they need me to sail." And Steinar is just like, "Well, I heard the captain is heading to um uh he's like he like, lists like some port, I don't know off the top of my head, like no in like the tip of the Holy Roman Empire, just like it's like Germanic based port. He just says, "Short journey, but going to be a good one."
Is that helpful to us?
No, opposite direction, unless you want to go to Germany
Unless we
or the
want
Holy
to go to
Roman
Germany.
Empire. Yeah.
It's where the other knights are.
They won't be expecting us in their home turf.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh, he'll nod and say, "Well, perhaps we'll cross paths again. It's lovely to hear from someone speaking a familiar tongue."
Steinar gives you a nod. Ingvar just grunts and takes like a continued sip of his drink. And they wish you well. Let's take a quick 5-minute break and then come back. All right, so Torben, do you rejoin your companions after that interaction?
Yeah, I think so. That was disappointing, but perhaps some groundwork has been laid.
Very, very likely. You're able to find Esteval and Elias into the little corner they've sequestered themselves in. And you three can be clustered even more closely together.
Elia will shove like his drinks to Torben. They're completely untouched.
Torben will drink both of them
Mhm.
immediately.
Immediately. Yeah, what's all going through your heads right now? What are you talking about? Oh,
Esteval's trying not to think, and so he's humming Gregorian chants to himself and feeding Monsieur Neville by hand, and that's what he does to just kind of empty his brain. No thoughts, at empty.
I think Elia will look at Torben and say, anything useful?
They say they're simply sailors headed north.
Hmm.
I don't believe them, but they weren't as friendly as I'd hoped.
I'm, I'm sorry. I'm sure they'll warm up to you, maybe? This is a terrible place. I don't think anyone here is as friendly as you might hope.
Even worse, they're boring.
Yeah. And Elia is like clearly like, are they? And I think again we sort of hear like, like dice clattering, belly laugh, like maybe like, like a smack from like an arm wrestling thing, and Elia's just sitting there like, please God, let me leave.
I think at one point, like because you're all like cramped up, is like someone just comes like, moving through the crowd and kind of like bumps up against where y'all see a little bit of the beer from their cup sloshes past the rim just to like splash on like the shoulder of Elias's cloak, just a little bit. And this person just goes, oh, apologies there. And then he stops, and he looks at you, Elias. There's like a flicker on his face of like it's almost like a little double take. And he goes, Elias Beaumont? Is that you?
And Elias has that like, oh shit, high school reunion moment. Do I know this person?
Um, how likely, I'm not going to have it be up to a roll or whatever, but less,
Mm.
how likely is it for Elias to remember the face of literally every noble he's ever briefly rubbed shoulders with at any point in his life? Because, like, I mean, prior to joining the order, I mean, like, you had a whole family, all the,
Mhm.
like, the nobility stuff. You probably did, like, gone to, like,
Oh,
weddings and events and stuff like
yeah, and
that.
like
Like,
hosted a bunch of parties, and
yeah,
if they
like,
traveled through, like they'd be welcome at our house. So yeah, I think we very much like see that like, oh shit, you know me and I do
yeah.
not know you. And I think he will just sort of smile and say, and you are?
Oh, you don't remember me? Oh, I can hardly blame you. It has been a few years, hasn't it? Alphonse, he like lowers his voice. He goes, Alphonse Lelou, you, I think it was 6 years ago. It was that wedding over in it's somewhere near Paris. Yes, you remember?
Ah,
You and
yes, of
I.
course. And I will like like scramble my brain for any details that I might have like that my mother might have briefed me on or whatever from this family to just throw out like, oh, with the nice vineyard or whatever, right? Like that one tiny detail that I might remember.
What is your history score?
Good question. What is my
What is
history
your history
score?
skill?
Let's have a look at that.
0. um,
But my persuade is 5, and
this is
this
very
man
true.
seems very drunk.
No, no, no. Yeah, he seems a little buzzed for sure. Yeah, I was gonna say like I factoring in like looking at your stats. I'm like because I'm not gonna do a roll for this. I'm just thinking I don't think you can conjure up any specific amount of information
Yeah.
other than to assume oh, this must be some local lord who like, or
Mhm.
some, or
Yeah,
like
I'll
local,
give him
like
like
local
a
noble, I should say. I should like not
I'll
lord.
give him like a generic compliment about, like the grounds or something, or like that hunting party we went on because we probably went
Well,
hunting.
here's the thing though, is Alphonse is not at all dressed like a
Mm.
noble. Like, so when he bumped into you, he just looked like anyone here. But the way he speaks and the fact that he recognizes you, he's very clearly a nobleman. He's honestly like looks like he's dressed like any of the rabble here. Though without any of the filth that comes with it, just the clothes.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I think I think he's like, what the hell are you doing here?
Ah, just travel. Do sit. Like you can see sort of Elia's like politeness and like courtesy, like taking over violently almost, and he will like there's no place to sit, but he will scooch as far as he can and like politely offer as if this was like, a giant dinner table that he is inviting this man to be part of.
And it's anything but, because truly it is just now even more cramped what he does with all of the airs of a nobleman, like shove himself into the group here. I think like just wedging himself firmly between like Esteval and Torben, almost giving them a disregarding like nod of like, you're not important, and looking at you. And like he like leans forward, and he has like a little like cup of wine, and he goes, I didn't take you for one that appreciates slumming it in the common quarters as well.
Oh, well, I must say I didn't take you for one, yet here we are.
Indeed. So what brings you here? I mean, last I heard, you had joined up with and I think your robes part a little bit, and you can like see the sign of like
Mhm.
the white and the cross. And then he kind of trails off, and he just says, yeah, interesting.
And I think Elia just gives like that noble smile where it's like very, very polite and bright, but there's like just a little strain at it. And I think he sort of like regards this man. And I think it shifts a little bit in that he realizes what this man realized. And it's shifting a little bit into, yeah, but you're not the way you should be either. And I think he like still smiling and being very polite and say, you must tell me why of all places you are here tonight.
Oh, I mean, Alphonse just kind of like gestures. I mean, it's thrilling, isn't it? Just the press
Mm.
of humanity, the beer, it flows, the company, it's so loud and disorderly. Oh, it's positively riveting. It's so boring in this city half the time. Everything I do with my family. Here, this is almost, well, it feels like I'm alive.
Ah. I think Elia kind of gives him like that ha ha ha, where he's like clearly like judging this man, but trying to very much not show it. Um, yeah, I'm not like,
He starts like looking down at his cup a little bit. Like once he noticed the tabard, it's almost like he's still conversational, but his eyes start to divert, and it's almost like it doesn't hold eye contact. At one point, like
mhm.
he like glances at Torben, glances at Esteval, and just the wheels in his head are turning. He's just nodding to himself slightly as you talk,
Mhm.
and occasionally
Yeah,
looks back up at you with a wry smile.
and I think I'll like sort of, clasp my hand over his shoulders like we're really good friends. Like do a hand gesture. I don't have coin, so I'm gonna use Esteva's coin for this. Whatever, we'll talk about it later. And like order him some more drinks. And I think Elia basically kind of wants to charm this guy into A, not selling me out, and B, maybe
Mm,
giving us more information about like sort of what's going on.
I was
But
gonna
I'm very much
say.
like, yeah,
I
like
was gonna
at
say
charm
Alphonse.
offensive.
I'm like there. I was like, if you didn't bring it up, I was gonna bring it up. Of like, Alphonse
Totally.
seems like someone who might try to blackmail you with this because he just this is clearly like selling you out.
Yeah, and I think
I
Elia realized that too. So I think there's immediately sort of that shift, like how is the wife? How are the children? Where it's like very polite, but also very much like, hey, buddy, I could ruin you too. Like, let's be chill about this and let's just both be down in the dirt.
I'm really into this. I think let's call for the a test here. I'm gonna say I'm gonna say this is challenging. So you'll need an 18 or higher. But yeah, obviously the consequences of this are simply that like he's gonna like want to try and like parlay or blackmail. He's going to try to leverage what he knows into you. He's not going to immediately go to like the authorities with this, but he is going to be working an angle and he will be trying to like, he will be like, hey, I'm going to go to the authorities unless you do something for me. You know, it's like he'll try to like leverage
Oh,
it. So if you,
I think, yeah, given that specifically, I think the angle that Elia is going to try and take is basically like, hey, we are friends. We don't need to be doing this. Like, I'll absolutely do you a solid and help you out, but basically, like, you gotta pay us or help us a little bit. You know, like, basically do the, like, hey, yeah, no, I'm obviously gonna help you. Like, we're obviously on the same side. Let's not make this like a bad thing. You know, is sort of, I think, the angle.
I'm gonna, I love it. I love the angle. What skill and attribute are you looking to combine here?
Um,
Before you decide, I'm just gonna go ahead and preface this now because I think I'm gonna give you disadvantage on the grounds of like because you're a disgraced house. He probably knows what happened to the Beaumonts. It's like that might you get a bit more of the of his greedy mind churning here.
yeah, I feel courage is a good one to sort of like power through here from the
Mm,
attributes.
makes sense.
Because I think it specifically also says about like, you know, social and emotional onslaught, which I feel this is.
I would agree.
Um, and then I think the skill, given that I'm basically just start trying to like
Talk him into it.
redirect
Yeah.
his attention, like persuade makes sense to me.
Yeah, persuade, because it is used to convince someone you to do something you want, either by intimidation, discourse, faith, or courage. I mean, yeah, I do think that like um
Because we're basically
I do think that
like
makes sense. Yeah, I think that
our
makes
goals aren't fully aligned here. So if Elia can basically convince him, like, no, they are, like, you don't need to blackmail me. I'll just help you like a friend would help
yeah,
you, you
no,
know?
I will like no, I agree. I think that is totally fair. So neither of your companions can help you, but as a reminder, you can spend faith points to modify your roles if you so desire.
Sure.
Because and also you have yeah, how many faith points do you have again?
3.
Yeah, so you could use it to um
And
effectively add your faith attribute to the result or to re-roll the test. I'll allow you to do that retroactively. I think there's nothing lost in the system by hand waving the fact that it says before the test.
mhm.
I'm fine with you spending it after the test.
Okay. Um,
But with
yeah,
disadvantage, you'll have 3 dice.
with disadvantage, and it's a +8. And how much do I need?
An 18. So you need
18.
a, I mean,
Okay,
hey,
let's do it. Um, well, with a disadvantage, that's 8 plus 8 is 18. No,
16.
16.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't enough.
Do you want
Was
to
it?
spend
How much
eight?
do I
Well,
need?
your two, what were the highest dice you rolled or the lowest dice? The worst dice?
I rolled a 10, a 5, and a 3. So I'm taking the 8
Yeah.
plus
So
8.
8 plus 8 is 16 when you needed 18. Do you
18.
want to spend your faith point to either re-roll the test or add your faith attribute to it? Because you can add 3 to it and that will make it a success. Or you can re-roll and try for crits. But actually, well, on a disadvantage, unless you all the dice roll the same thing, you can't get a crit because if you roll a crit, it would default to the non-crit number.
And if I re-roll a dice, can I just re-roll the lowest one on
No,
this?
in for spending faith points, it's you re-roll the entire test.
All of them.
So yeah,
Okay.
you could spend a faith point though to add 3 to the result, and that would make it
Yeah,
succeed.
I'll spend a fate point
Unless you're
then
more interested
to.
in the failure existing. I
It is
know
kind of funny to
I
get
know,
blackmailed.
entirely
And
up to
that would
you.
give Torbett and Estevao so much juice to be like, Elia, you gotta fucking dig that thing up. Sure, why not? Let's get blackmailed. Let's do
You were
it.
so ready to spend that faith point until I threw that out there.
Yeah. I was gonna. I was like, no, wait, actually, this is very funny.
Is that your final answer?
Yeah,
All
sure.
right. Okay, cool. I can hear Kevin and Ben wincing from here.
Dude, bar fight. Let's go.
Let's go. No, I think there's just that like, you know, he nods along with you and he's all smiles and it's so fake.
Mhm.
Like even Torben and Esteval, who do not exist in the circles of the nobility, like can tell like the insincerity that's present here as Alphonse like, of course. I mean, that said, he like tilts his head one way and like, looks at Torben, looks at Esteval and nods and says, these are very interesting times. Lots of interesting stories, decrees coming from the king. I imagine you lot have had a rather eventful week. That would explain why you look like you slept in a stable.
And yet we fight like we slept at the temple.
Oh, of that I have no doubt. I didn't. He's we established that Torben speaks French, so I can't have him like, or did we say that he speaks French? Yeah, he does. I can't have him switch languages on Torben. He just like nods and says, "Well, I mean, of that I have no doubt, but it's a difficult situation. I mean, there are people all over the city looking for your ilk. No, I have no aspersions one way or the other. Though the church has decreed, it is a bit more complicated. As a man of faith myself, I mean, if the papacy says that you're all heretics and the king says you're all criminals, that puts you in a very uncomfortable position, I imagine. Though something tells me your two friends here are more accustomed with that than you are, huh?
I would truly appreciate it if you would not talk about my friends that way.
Oh, your friends. I did not realize
Yes.
your friends. Of course, yes, your brothers in arms in the fellowship of the poor soldiers of Christ or whatever it was they're called. Yes, yes. No disrespect intended, of course.
There's enough uncivilized nonsense going on here. We do not need to add to it, do we?
Mm. Hmm. He nods and says, I see no reason why that your life should become more complicated. Indeed, your friend here, he's looking at Torben, says, is very clearly a strong and capable sword. I would hate to have to, well, report your presence here. And
Yes, you would.
I would. I have a feeling I would come to regret it. But I don't think you're going to make any motions here unless you want the entire place in an uproar. I mean, this place is basically a dry pile of hay on a summer night. A single errant ember or spark will send the whole barn aflame. But that said, I'm a busy man. I'm burdened with all of the purposes and expectations of the nobility. Elias, you know what that is like prior to your family's misfortunes. Just there's so much on our backs. There's so much to do, so much responsibility.
Hmm. Yes, and still we manage to always talk and never get quite to a point. It is remarkable, truly.
And so I think that I would be more than happy to keep my discretion on this matter, but I would require a bit of an assurance.
Being.
Mm, a favor.
Hmm. Well, as your friend, I feel obliged to help you however I may. What would you ask of me?
Oh, not here. I would not want to discuss such things here in such a place. Why don't you swing by my family's home tomorrow afternoon? I can see you are given a proper bath. I'm sure you miss the luxuries of home. And I can discuss the matters a little bit more clandestinely.
Well, I do not see how I might reject such a generous offer.
Hmm. I'm glad to hear it. I would again hate to see you fall in hard times. I
Of
just
course.
I figure that well, if the sun is at its zenith tomorrow and I see no sign of my old friend Elias here or his traveling companions, and my heart will be burdened and worrisome. I'll have to go to the magistrate, I think, and let him know that the Templars, 3 Templars of your description, were poking around this part. Have you seen them? Oh dear.
Such worry I would never dare to bring upon your heart. Rest easy tonight, and you will find us at the break of dawn.
I didn't say break of dawn. I said at noon.
And I will be there at the break of dawn
Then
because
I
I know what it is to work hard.
then I won't let you in. I'm
Well,
telling you
that would
now.
be extremely rude, and you would not be rude to your guests now, would you?
He just chuckles to himself and again gets up from the table with his cup and just says, "Whatever the hour, I look forward to it. Scratch my back, I scratch yours.
As always,
Good evening, gentlemen."
good
Oh,
evening.
God be with you.
And
Alphonse,
with
like,
you,
yeah,
you
Alphonse
need him.
gets up from the table and disappears back into the crowd of the Basilisk Den.
Torben's going to start to rise.
No, no, no. And I think Elia will like try to get you to sit again.
We kill him.
No. We do not even know what he might ask. Perhaps it is not so bad.
It
He
doesn't
has a
matter. He's a liability.
he has a family, Torben.
And they will mourn him.
Or
They
they'll try and get
probably won't,
revenge.
but please, we do not need to stoop to this every time. Let's hear him out.
Torben will sit down, but he's glaring at Elia.
Fine, you want to take it out, punch me. Or whatever it is that people do in this bar to make them feel better.
We drink.
Really? That drink makes you feel better?
Makes you feel less.
Hmm. And I think he's still not judging it, but he's like sort of sitting there like clearly deeply humiliated at what just happened and like trying not to show it.
Here's a question, by the way, I want to ask. Um, where's the cup? Where did you store that again? Because I'm just reminding myself of how you traveled with it.
I think Elias has it on his person.
Like where? I just want to make sure I understand like where this thing
Oh,
is.
it was my understanding that there was like I think we kept it out of the chest and it's
Mm,
now like in a little
like
bag, like
wrapped.
sort of
Oh, like wrapped
under, like
up.
wrapped
Okay,
around, like close to him.
cool, cool. I just wanted to make sure I understood where that
Hmm.
was because yeah, you can like
Yeah. Like that would have
um
not been something that you can see or spot. It's just like one of the bags that he has on him.
understood. Good to know for my own knowledge. Um, you don't have a lot of coin to work with. So like and considering that how many drinks have already been bought, you're probably down to like the dregs and it's like a question of like it's like if how much will this last you? And it is your coin, Esteval, that Elias at one point used to buy an additional round of drinks. It's down to like just a few that fit in your palm. The weight of the metal is cold but light at the same time.
Well, it looks like we'll be feeling a little bit more tonight. Afraid that's it, friends. Going to have to cut you off.
Please do. I do not need it.
Corbin's just glaring at Elias this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think Elia just sort of seeing that and being like as humiliated as he is, I think he just there's like sort of that silent moment and then just like the screech of the chair like being pushed back. I think he says, I will take a walk to clear my head, and I suppose I will find you here or somewhere. And I think he just like kind of, if you excuse me, and then he's just going to like not storm off, but do like that, like I need to leave right now kind of walk where he's just like kind of elbowing through people, probably getting like more drinks spilled on him. But he's just making like a beeline for the door to be away for a moment.
Could you be so kind to roll a awareness test of your own to see if it's Elias' turn now to see if he notices the fact that that there's someone with eyes on you guys. What attribute do you want to add to this? It'll be a difficulty 15. Going
Girl,
for
you know it's gotta be Faith.
faith. That I mean, I like the argument. I like the argument.
Because of the Lord.
The Lord.
The Lord. Yeah, faith awareness. That is a plus
I love how
5.
your faith skill is this attribute has become like a catch-all for just like your luck, effectively, of like
Essentially, that's what it is. Like, just, I don't know, can Jesus take the wheel for a second?
yeah. It's like the noble ability to just be so sure of yourself that you stumble into the right place at the right
Yeah,
time.
good things will happen to me. That is how
Sure.
God ordained it.
Mhm.
Aw, that is a 9 and a 6 for 15 plus 5, so 20.
Okay, so it is a success. I'll narrate this in a moment here. Though for Torben and Estevan, I'm curious. I feel like I know the answer to this, but I'm still going to ask it to both of you. Is how are the two of you at handling liquor or just at handling alcohol in general? Because you've had a few cups, it sounds like.
I think Torben would need a lot more than a few cups
Yeah, I
to.
was about to say that was my assumption.
Yeah, Esteval, I don't think he's got enough money to get himself to drink that deep and that heavily.
Yeah.
But he might be
So
rocking a pleasant buzz. Who knows?
yeah, Elias, you do get up at one point and kind of begin shouldering your way through the crowd to make it outside. And you do notice amongst the crowd like a suspicious figure on your way out. Maybe you clock it like right as you're, heading out, like it's just like one last look. I think you actually see like someone at the, one end of the room, like standing up discreetly and maybe starting to like low key. What's more interesting, following you or going closer to your friends? I think following you might be, but like, yeah, like someone's very clearly like getting up and like moving towards the door. And I don't think there's enough contextual information to be like condemning, confirmed suspicious activity, but it's the cinematic way of being like there's like an eerie music cue, like this person
Yeah.
who like truly like blends in here. And I think you just see them kind of like they have that kind of like hood up, just kind of like darker clothing and got a cup in front of them, like head down, just moving pretty like non-discreetly, but you get the awareness of like someone's watching me and following me right now, or at least making for the door at the same time I am. And you got that little feeling of like, what do you do?
Yeah, I think we sort of see, that I see you from across the bar kind of moment. But I think Elia, like spotting it, I think he's like still kind of too upset and like humiliated and feeling, terrible that he put his friends in danger and like generally just feeling very inadequate that he can't seem to deal with situations anymore. That it's like all that emotion is kind of shoving him forward and he can't just stop because something like happened. So I think he still like kind of gets out and then like starts to walk, and maybe if he kind of still has that feeling, I think he is going to find like a quieter place to see if they approach him, and kind of like, lean against, like the rain is still pouring, I assume, like lean under a little bit of shelter, and like very subtle like hand on his sword, but just kind of like stand there in the quiet. And then I think like sort of to the air, he will say, I've got no money if you're looking to rob me.
Mm.
But like almost like conversational, like an opening.
I'm I kind of want to see if you can even pull that off. Because
Sure,
right of
absolutely.
you can even do the thing like I duck to the side and like
Hmm.
and to catch it,
Or
it
they
catches the person by
intercept
like
me.
yeah exactly like I want like I'm curious like is this a situation where it's like you see them coming this way so you're like okay cool I'm gonna go here and wait for them but they diverted inside and went somewhere else and like it or I don't know so like I kind of want to leave this up to a test because the uncertainty
Sure.
is interesting. Yeah, I think just I'm gonna make this opposed, just so it'll be I'll be rolling 2d10 plus one, to see if like this person gets the better of you here. What do you want to roll?
I want to roll.
And it cannot be faith because that makes no sense for the situation.
How dareth. Let's see. Can I say courage? Because it's also like mental sturdiness and ability to face down fear. And I think it's like sort of that, like he was very emotional, and like his ability, like what's going to make or break this is like his ability to basically still kind of keep it together. Like can
Mhm.
he sort of pivot quickly enough? Like I think physically he can do all of that, right? It's not that hard, but is he like mentally there to either keep the interest or to like do it in a way that's smart enough for this person? Know what I mean? Like sort of that.
I'm into what you're putting down here.
And I guess the skill. Hmm.
I mean, it's I was gonna say it sounds like stealth.
I don't feel like it is because I'm not trying to hide from this person. I'm trying to sort of get them to follow me, but like I'm trying to guide where they're going. So
Oh,
I
so
would
like
either say awareness or insight
interesting.
or even persuade, but I feel like that might be, as in, like I'm trying to basically get them, like I want them to think they have the upper hand, but I want to be in control of that situation.
I was gonna say if you wanted to go for persuade, because I'm looking at the stat here, like I could see because it does say like convincing them to do what you want through trickery, where it's
Hmm.
like it's intellect. Now that obviously speaks towards like more like a social thing. I could see an argument here for persuade playing in because what was the other stat you were using? You said it was the attribute
Courage,
courage.
courage.
Um,
I feel like it's kind of almost like, do I play this part well enough where I make this person feel like, yeah, you're in control, you're following me, I don't see you, and then I kind of flip it on them to be like,
mm,
I actually did know you were there, which kind of like
I
persuade almost as in like acting, like not,
yeah,
yeah.
I think like you get final say here, or rather, to negotiate this. I do think if you wanted to go the route of persuade, it would still be intellect, even though it's not like a verbal thing. It's more of just like you just being crafty, and getting the better of
Hmm.
someone, especially someone like the spy who's very observant. So I think you would need to use intellect for that, but I'm not sold on insight or awareness. I think
Yeah, then I'll do intellect persuade, sure. That's +7.
not bad.
That is a 14 +7 for a 21.
Okay, so you do it. You best him. And you already described what happens, which is like you're way
Yeah.
out there. You're like, I don't call it Arabi. I think like walk past you and like freezes. And Troy, remind me where this is in relation to when you left the tavern.
Yeah, I like to think that I almost did like a little loop So we're still like kind of close, like I'm leaning, maybe like there's a back door or something, or it's like the next house, but still like kind of close. Like I'm not, if something goes wrong, I want to be where my friends are. But I'm sort of like leaning, and it is like sort of that alleyway between two houses. Maybe like some crates are piled up here, because this is like where deliveries happen. And I think I'm like, sort of leaning against a wall, the rain pouring down, and just like very tired, go like, I've no money if you wish to rob me.
The man following you like freezes for a moment, like and like catches, caught off guard, turns to you. It's like, oh, terribly sorry, sir. You must have mistaken me for someone else. I'm not. I'm just on my way.
I think Elia kind of like pushes himself off, like kind of does like, like that head tilt where he's looking this person up and down and says, yeah, maybe I was mistaken.
It's a long moment, and he fucking turns and begins to book it down the street. Let's go back
Booking
and
it?
booking it,
Okay, then
sprinting,
I'm following. Like,
like
no,
like
that's worrying.
sprinting away from you. Let's go back inside the basilisk then, though, because Esteval and Torben, after like Elias gets up and walks out, the barkeep, comes back up, with a pitcher and just like holds up, being like, eh, topping you off, or we done?
Does it require payment?
It does.
We're done.
Fair enough. Where'd your other one go? Not causing trouble, right?
All of nature.
Nods gruffly.
The
Says,
man who came to speak to us, has he come here often?
hmm. You have to be a bit more specific than that. A lot of patrons. I don't keep my eye on it at all times.
I think he'll give a
Yeah.
brief and vaguely
Oh,
insulting description.
yeah, that one. Seen him in here a few times before. Is he causing
Caused you any
trouble?
trouble?
Not to my knowledge. I've seen him maybe lose a bit of coin at games of dice. That's about it.
My thanks.
Yep, of course. And if you don't got any coin, he says, he looks at, Monsieur Neville, and he's just like, as good company as you keep. Um, I would prefer if you made more room for paying customers. I'm not kicking you out yet, just I don't want it to be too crowded for folks who are looking to actually spend their money.
Message taken. We'll get out of your hair.
You're in a dour mood. Anything troubling you, friend?
It depends on if you have the coin to pay for it.
It's only fair. It's only fair. Tell you what. He pours a single drink on the table and sets it in front of you, just being like, I can see a cloud hanging over anyone's head, and for that reason I will oblige. There you go. I've paid. If you want to talk about whatever troubles you, I've bought my admission.
Oh man, I was not expecting that. Um uh we're just new in town. Don't know anybody. We don't have
You're as green as the gills that they fish up out of the river or ferry in from Jup. I can tell that you're new in town.
and short of friends these days, it seems.
Mm. Well, if you're looking for friends, you've picked the wrong part of the city for good company.
And where would be the right part of city for good company?
Fuck if I know. My business is here.
I see. Seems Royan is a little short on good company these days.
Depends on who you ask. And if that's all that troubles you, a lack of company, I mean, might I recommend a bathhouse? Although you
Uh,
don't have coin, and I don't think the girls deal in favors.
no, of course not. Uh, in the back of Esteval's mind, he's like, I don't know if I would know what to do with one anyways.
I think the barkeep has like invited himself to sit down at the table for a moment. It's his fucking business, so he'll do whatever he wants. He walks through this bar with the confidence that Torben had walking through the streets. So it's just like the yes, I am the dominant species here, but just sits down. And he's like taking like a moment's rest. It looks like all the airs of the barkeep, like he's not intending to sit here for a while. It's just like he's having a moment to sit. He just like gestures across the table at Torben and says, "Well, you seem to have one friend by your side, and I can assume one other who is presently heeding the call of nature. And if you want a bit of friendly advice, you came to this part of the city for a reason. I can tell. I see it on your face, plain as day. People don't come to the Basilisk's den dressed as you are, just looking for a night's drink. They come looking for work. And given that you asked after work, of which I have none to offer, you are clearly in the market for something. And while I cannot provide you said opportunity, I see and hear a lot. And as long as the peace is maintained, I don't give any degree of shit about the company you keep or the aspirations you hold for the world beyond my doorstep. So, why don't you tell me what it is you're looking for? And I will give you perhaps more actionable advice so you can stop dribbling your rainwater all over my goddamn floor.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize the rain was a problem. I'm gonna look over at Torben and back at him. We heard there are certain peoples that come through this establishment that deal in the passage of people. We're trying to move through Royan. This is not our intended staying place. We simply want to get passage on a ship,
Hmm.
working passage. We're willing to put in the effort to pay for our wait.
Why'd you come here and not any tavern along the docks?
Little Bird told us the Basilisk Den is where you find these sorts of people.
Yeah. As much as I'd like to disagree with that notion, I know my clientele. My patrons are a colorful crew. Hmm. I don't necessarily want to make this a test because I don't think there's like I think the role play is just really strong here. But I also kind of want to see. Hmm. No, I don't. I'm weighing it. I don't think I would want to call for a test here. I don't think the prospect of failing here is interesting to the story. I think getting a little bit of something from this barkeep is cool, especially with all the setup we've done here. I think he says, well, it's a vague notion, certainly. Many unscrupulous sorts come round here. Many know a little birdie themselves. I can't speak for everyone who comes through here. I can't answer that honestly, but I might be able to point you in a better direction.
I'll be happy to hear it. Any direction that gives us forward progress would be useful.
Let's go back outside. Elias, you said you were going after the man who was booking it.
Yeah, booking it is very
Full, full
suspicious.
dead. It is damningly suspicious. It is
I
a
think we see
full
just
dead sprint through the rain.
like fully for one hot second, Elia wanted to blaspheme right there. Like just like absolutely not, not today. But he doesn't. And immediately there's just like kind of this like, oh, and like books it after this person. Like, no, no, not today.
Yeah, I love this. I mean, just like you are like kicking up just mud and puddles of rainwater as boots on the ground, just rushing after this man who's like fully just sprinting down like an alleyway, like maybe even like in a desperation, like tosses a few like just like overturns like some like barrels or
Mhm.
crates out to the side just to kind of impede your pursuit. We can hear like the jingle of your chainmail underneath your cloak as you're rushing. Cloak fully open now, so even
Oh
though it's
yeah,
dark, even though it's
fully.
dark, and like in the alleyway, like in any degree of light that would come, it's like you wear a visible Templar thing. Yeah, let's make this chase a bit, like at least this opening thing, a bit of a basic test.
Mhm.
Because I mean, obviously, it's entirely likely that you could lose him. He
Lose
could he
them,
could outrun
yeah.
you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, it's pretty dark and it's very rainy, and you have more weighing you down than he does, and he seems to at least know this area. So I'm going to give you disadvantage. Now,
Okay,
we can pick
sure.
attribute and skill, and I mean, if you can come up with an argument for something that might give you advantage situationally, if it makes sense, it'll mitigate the disadvantage at least.
Mhm.
Because like if there's like a situational advantage you can think of that I'm not seeing here.
I mean, I do think that he's like sort of, at least initially, like he did call out, like stop. This
Mm-hmm.
is, like some kind of like this is not necessary. But like obviously I don't think we have time for him to like have a
Mm-hmm.
whole like let me persuade you why I'm not a threat.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely more of a like if you catch him, that's the line. But while he's
exactly.
thinks
Yeah,
he's gonna
like
get
just
away, it's
the
not.
initial like stop, no, don't, and then like they're already gone.
I mean,
So
also
okay.
I'm gonna telegraph this in advance, by the way, just on a broader strokes. If you guys don't stop the spy and prevent him from reporting on you guys, there will be an increase of pursuit points and it is that will be gained. Um,
Fully.
yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Rain
hmm.
coming down, it's slick, it's dark, you're armored a little bit, you're carrying stuff, like
Yeah.
you could slip and
Might I
hurt yourself.
say
Like,
might for just like, being physically stronger and
oh,
pushing through and maybe like,
100%.
yeah, so might make sense.
I
Um,
mean, if you weren't going to say, well, I know quickness is more speed, but um, using might in the context of like like truly just like barreling down things. Again, I described that he was throwing obstacles in your way,
yeah,
and
it
you're
just,
choosing to just fucking go through.
catching it on the arm, bashing it
You're not
aside.
about catching up to him necessarily in the quick sense. You're about just enduring and just going through it, like driving through it like a drill until
Exactly.
eventually you are in a place to get him. It's not like you're not in a speed mindset. Okay, I'm into
Yeah,
that.
I'm hoping to just keep an eye on it and then, either he hopefully makes a mistake or like the situation changes, but I know that I'm not quicker than him necessarily. And I guess skill, can I for that sense say awareness?
I was thinking awareness would probably make sense here. Yeah. So, and I mean, yeah. So again, I'm going to give you disadvantage just from the environmental circumstances. I mean, do you see anything that you could possibly leverage for an advantage in the narrative? If you can't, that's fine.
No, I mean I was thinking that he was a Templar spy. So then like seeing that I am
Oh yeah, no,
one
he's definitely
would have
not a
helped,
Templar
but
spy.
no, but he is
Definitely
a
not a Templar spy.
not
Uh-uh.
on our
Mhm.
side. So then um
This guy's definitely not on your side spy.
I no, I don't see it. I
Okay.
think
Then you'll roll
I gotta
disadvantage.
stop myself at
Mhm,
some point from stretching too far.
mhm, mhm.
Um, Character growth. Sure. So that is +5 disadvantage. Um, with disadvantage, that would be 17. How much do I need?
It's going to be opposed, so I'm going to roll it.
Okay.
And I'm going to give him advantage.
Well, that's
Um,
rude.
yeah, well, it is. But it's still not enough because he rolled a 12 total.
Okay.
That's the beauty of adversary rolls is their modifier is only plus the number of Templars in the scene. So there's case
True.
it's only just one. Um, and I'll let you know right now, this guy is he's not, he doesn't have stats. He's not a combatant. Like this,
Mhm.
if you were to draw your sword on him, like this guy would be killed. Like it's not even like a we
Yeah.
roll for damage. Like this guy, you kill this guy. He's a fucking common spy. 12. Okay. Yeah. I think it's like it sounds like the long game, right? Of like you're just pushing through, like the rain's coming down, the cold just creeping into just through your clothes, and you just shove your way through obstacles as he takes like quick turns down side alleyways, like hops over like some fences and is just trying to get fully away from you. And he is quicker, but you don't lose his trail. So like eventually I think it's like, like we see just like some old, like, just like dark, narrow crevice between buildings, like a dead end that he like ducks into, like hand against like the wall of this, like of this building, just breathing heavily, like glimpsing out to like look down the street to see if he finally lost you. Rain coming down in sheets, just drizzles falling off of the roofing. And I think like he turns to go through, like, or I said it was a dead end, but I actually think that like there was like maybe like a back way. He like, turned to begin going there, and you're already there, like blocking off his escape.
Mhm.
Like you're right there, so you can just like
Oh,
he
immediately like grab him, like, by the tunic, slam him up against the wall, like my body pressed against his. Um, like, oh yeah, we're making this a little bit homoerotic. I don't know why you're making that face, Kevin. I don't know how you did not see this coming. And like immediately, like sort of hoisting him up. You see, like sort of his tippy toes, like, like scratching on the floor to gain like some purchase as I'm hoisting him up very close to his face. And I say, who are you and what do you want?
I'm going to spend a pursuit point as you say that. Let me lower this down to 4. Um, there is like a night patrol of city guards, like torches out, like walking down, and they're like, "Oi, you lot in there!" And like, like they kind of like, walking up, just being like, "What's all this about?" Seeing that like, you have him shoved up against the wall. They can't see your tabard at this moment,
Mhm.
but the guards like they do like walk across this scene as you have him shoved up against the wall and are questioning him. And what do you do?
Yeah. I think I sort of look this man in the eye. Um, and I probably didn't have time to like take out, or like I probably did. I've been chasing this man for a while. I think I have like, no, I think I just like push him a little like tighter, like choking him a little. Meaningful look, like, yeah, you could rat me out, but I'll snap your neck before you do. And then I just smile. I think it's kind of like I give like the guards this charming smile. It's like I'm a little pissed off, but this is like two friends having a moment. And I think I'll say something about, like, oh, fucker won't pay me back. Loses at gambling, doesn't even think to pay me. Can you believe this shit? Your own goddamn friends. He doesn't say goddamn. Your own friends.
That I think what I'm going to focus on for this, because what you described there, is I'm going to ask you to do a might plus persuade check for the sake of intimidating him into compliance, because obviously if he fails, he's going to maybe say something bad, and
Absolutely.
that will be not great for this moment. and I'm going to give you advantage because you caught up to him. He's winded, and also you're a fucking armed knight, and this guy's naturally scared of a armed confrontation like this. So like, no, I was gonna say advantage from that, which yes, still, but I think disadvantage as well from the fact that like the guards are like they're approaching, so like you have a very small window of time to do it discreetly enough, and like the guards might overhear you or something like that. So it's just gonna be a flat roll then, I think.
Okay. To add to the tension, like Elia is kind of almost pressing himself closer so they don't see the Templar bit, like,
I'm gonna say
important.
and this is not going to be an opposed roll. I'm going to say that this is I'm honestly gonna say this is trivial. Like it's a 12 difficulty. Like you're pretty threatening. Only reason I'm having you roll is because the possibility of failing is interesting to the narrative right now.
I'm sorry, it would just be so fucking funny if he got arrested. Like leaves the bar for 3 seconds, gets arrested. Okay, let's see where this goes. That's +7. Well, that was an 18 on the dice +7, so
Wow, hell yeah, hell yeah.
he's had a bad day.
He's immediately just like, like eyes wide with fear. If it wasn't just fully raining, he'd be sweating buckets, and it is he has no room to speak as you spin around. Just is like this mother, this guy won't pay me back. And the spy, I think rather deftly, in the blink of an eye, is inebriated. Like he like has like a sway to a stature, and he goes, "I won fair square."
Yeah, that's what you always say.
This guy, you got it. He looks at the guards and he's like, "This guy is he's nuts. He's crazy. He's lost his mind. He's a feral animal. You've got to help me." I think the guards are looking between this and like they see you, they see that he's drunk, and he says, and when the guard just goes, like they talk much, right? He goes, "Be that as it may, you're not out after dark. You're out after dark, slinking around, not a torch in sight, not a lantern in hand, and you're causing a bit of a scene. Move on, both of you. Get out of here."
Of course, right away. And I will like friendly clasp my arm around him and like I'm pretending to like hoist him up because he's so drunk he can't stand, but it's like, like very subtle iron grasp on this person as I'm moving away.
I love it. The two of you move away. Back at the Basilisk Den, the barkeep is kind of like just like imparted some, I guess, like advice that we'll gloss over. We'll just paint in broad strokes. He's not a great source of information for specifically what you're looking for, rather more like advice for approaching the situation. Because effectively knowing his bar, if you're looking for someone who frequents this place, well, like this is packed enough that you're in the wrong neighborhood for it. Like there's a lot of things like discretion is difficult here. Just being subtle. I mean, there's a lot of people here that work in similar circles. And if you're looking for a specific person, you might need to pry the patrons a bit more. He's like, he doesn't know, the details personally, but others here might. You might want to speak with other people present at the bar. If you're looking for someone specific, if he hears anything, he'll let you know. But like generally, there's a lot of this kind of stuff here. So he doesn't have one specific lead for you. He said if you had any, he says like, he presents it to you like this. He's like, as it stands, I know my regulars pretty well. I remember a face quite well. If you had any degree of further information about this person, maybe I could tell you, but you don't. If you had Any any detail, I'd be able to help. So if you find something out or hear something, come speak to me if you haven't figured it out for yourselves. Maybe I can help you. But as long as it doesn't cost me anything more than a drink.
We appreciate your indulgence.
Well, it's what this place is here for, isn't it? He like nods at you, Torben. He's like, "You're a Dane, ain't you?
Indeed.
Not one of the first, though your kind are certainly rarer. But he's like, you get on with the others, gesturing because those sailors are still somewhere around here. He's almost just asking, it's like if you're here with them or this is like a separate thing.
Just a chance meeting with people from my part of the world.
All right. Well, if they start a fight, I'm going to put it on your tab.
Oh.
You're closest of kin, I suppose.
Well, Norway and Denmark.
The Darky's already getting up and walking away. He's lost interest in the conversation. Nivelle begins to like squirm a little bit, and the hour is pretty late.
Still need to figure out what we're going to be doing for sleeping.
Yes, you do. And I will let you know, by the way, right? If it wasn't obvious, Ryan is a dangerous town for you. So there are no benefits to be gained from downtime here. But it's not currently so dangerous as to increase pursuit points by default. That is a thing some locations can be, depending on the size of them. For this first night, it's just dangerous. But on consecutive nights, that might change. I will also let you know that the Basilisk's Den is not an inn. It is a tavern. Though that said, the barkeep may be willing to let you like sleep on the floor but there might be a place to sleep. You might have like an inn to recommend or something like that, or anything. There are ways that you could possibly find lodging without needing to role play it out. For at least some options, but most of the ones that you could get easily would, to some degree, cost coin.
Torben, I think, will put his hand out and just grasp the barkeep's sleeve and say, the Nords are cheating at dice. They will cheat your customers. If we get rid of them, will you help us find a place to sleep?
Oh, this is good. I think he like glimpses over at the Nords, looks over at you, does pull his arm away from you to relinquish his arm. He goes, you can see like the wheels are turning as he's like, cheating, you say? Well, that's not my business. I don't care who cheats. But the reaction is where I get concerned. You can see that he's weighing it because on the one hand, he's like, it's not hurting anyone. But then again, that could lead to an uproar if they're cheating and they get caught. And then he looks, as he's weighing this, mulling it over, he meets your eye again. He's like, okay, big man. Answer this question. Can you get him to clear out without starting a fight?
And he'll look at Esteval.
Esteval shrugs. We don't exactly have a plan for this. Not looking good.
We could try.
If you manage to get them out of here without causing a ruckus or hurt anyone, we can talk.
Very well.
Yeah, how do you want to approach this?
Esteval, how do we do this? I was going to break one of their arms.
Oh, and don't damage the tavern. That would be another thing the barkeep throws in is like, no, don't harm anyone. Or, well, he's like, don't kill anyone. Don't cause too much problems, and maybe don't damage any of the stuff in the tavern. That's all he's working from.
I got nothing. I'm not gonna lie.
Mm. Oh,
See, this
difficult.
would have been handy to have Elia for.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Oh, now you miss
You know
him.
what? Yeah.
Now you miss him.
Meanwhile, we'll go back to Elias while you two are thinking for a moment. Um, After getting rid of the guards, or rather, just like clearing off, you clapped your arm around him, and where did you go?
I think, just sort of kind of repeating what just happened. Like, I think a dead end.
Sure. Okay.
Like I maybe not like kind of like, pushing up again, but I kind of like thrown him against a wall. I'm blocking the way, just standing there, arms crossed over my chest,
Mm-hmm.
looking at this person and just looking him like up and out. And I said, well, as I said, who are you and what do you want?
Uh, I I'm I am no one. I am merely a man who has skills and is quite fond of the king's silver.
I see.
Word came to the village I was at to be on the lookout for any certain types that caught my eye, certain types that may very well be um, fleeing Templars. And it was my job to follow and report.
Hmm.
You kind of
I
like
have,
press up against the wall a little bit.
yeah. I think Elia is standing there, like now casually his hand goes to his sword. It's sort of like that stoically threatening way, where to him it's like almost like a very casual thought, like, should I kill this man or not? And I think he just sort of says, I have had a rather tough time of it. Now, my lord has taught me that violence is sometimes the answer, but between you and I do not much care for it. So convince me. Convince me that you live.
Well, it is certainly a godly Christian act to spare me. Yeah, I won't say a word. Uh, I can tell that you are a man of God, a man of virtue. And as far as I can report, you slipped my grip. You made it out of my sight. I'll report back that I did indeed see you and then when you visited the tavern, but I assume by then you'll be long gone. I won't tell them of this little indiscretion.
And the next of my brethren, will you give them to torture and dungeons and cold death? Will you have them burned?
You are a man of such charity and virtue as yourself must understand that I am a loyal follower of the king. I am. Are you not a loyal man of your oath to your brethren? I merely do as my lord's decree, and service is paid. If I were paid any other way, well, times are tough.
Yes, I am loyal to my oath, and my oath demands that I make sure my brethren stay unarmed. And he will pull his sword not convinced at all by like the empty flattering. And I think there is like that genuine look of almost like resigning himself to the misery of having to do this because he genuinely wanted this person to say something true and sincere, but it's just empty flattery. It's just basically saying like, I won't rat you out, but I will rat out the next person. And he can't do that. So he pulls out his sword and just like efficiently just whoosh, through the ribs, through the heart, pulls it
Yeah,
back
like just
out.
slumps against the back alley in the darkness, blood coming
And
through
he will
his
give him like
clothes.
his final rites. Like he will pray for him as he does so. He's not a priest, so he can't take his final rites, but
Yeah.
pray for him as much as he can. And I think, yeah, he will look if he has money or any, or like documents or like anything on him that might mean something.
Yeah, I love the image in my mind of just like the blood running down your blade to drip to the ground and it's just getting all washed in the rain and the
Hmm.
mud. Oh yeah. This dude's got money on him. He's not like wealthy, but this dude's a paid fucking spy. He's got a coin purse. He's got more money than frankly Esteval made for his axe and came into town with.
Hmm. I
And go ahead.
I do want to be clear.
Mhm.
I don't feel like this goes against the oath, but our oath is that we cannot steal from the less fortunate. I do not feel like this man
This
is
does
less
not count.
fortunate.
This does not count. Yeah.
Yeah,
As far and
absolutely.
also, if we're being hyper like technical with it, counts as an enemy because
Yeah, which Elia would be. Like
yeah,
that's what he does.
counts as an enemy.
Yeah.
I mean, he was you off you gave him his chance, and you saw that he was a threat, took him out. Yeah, you said you looked for money, and then like what else did you say you were looking for? Like written things on him?
Yeah, like documents or like hints of, like anything that I might
Right.
think is useful.
I just think that like he doesn't have a lot on him, but what he does have is probably like a note or something to that effect. That just like I'm not going to get specific with the wording, just to kind of like paint you more of an understanding picture that is um, like following Friday the 13th. It's like, messengers all over the French countryside, any spies that are out there. It's just being like, this guy being one of them. It's just being like, is to like effectively follow and report back on any information. And this guy just happened to cross paths with you when you didn't notice, probably in the 6 days you were, walking to Royan, you passed through some villages. This guy could have caught your scent and then followed you from there and intended to rat you out. But he is a spy for the king. Not like he's gotten correspondence from the king, but very much like, he is in the coin purse of the French royalty. So
Hmm.
doing things to help rat out Templars and find any who
Yeah.
escaped.
I'll keep the document in case we want to pull a let's pretend that one of us is being turned in by the other two for whatever reason we need it.
Mm-hmm.
And also because I don't want the guards finding that on his body and knowing why he maybe got stabbed. So I will take that. I'll take the money. And I think we just see like a moment of like he like leans down on his sword, one knee in the rain over this body to like just very shortly pray over him and hope that despite his sins, may God forgive him and keep him.
I love it. But back at the tavern, any thoughts, you two? Or is this a cause you do not feel capable of tackling yourselves?
I have a long shot.
I'm all ears.
Uh, I think Esteval is going to, uh, in macro sense, um, go up to the Nordic sailors since they're our target, and pretend to be a little bit more drunk than he is, and spill the beans that they're looking for Templars. That there's a big bounty on these Templars, and we've tracked them all the way from Paris, and essentially cast himself as uh, a a bounty hunter. But we've tracked them here to Royan, but turns out they've probably already smuggled themselves out on the onto a ship. It's where we lost track of them, and we just can't get access to them from here. And try and sell them a line that they need to go to one of the ships, assuming, of course, that they are sailors, which they don't really have weapons or chainmail, so I'm safely assuming that. Um, but say, yeah, we saw him climbing aboard, this ship, and do one of those sort of fortune teller things where I get the details of their ship out of them to then feed
Oh
it back
yeah.
into them to
Mhm.
convince them that that there are Templars that have snuck onto their ship, and if they go find them and catch
They'll
them,
get
it's
money.
worth a ton of money.
Oh, that's clever. That's really clever. I like that a lot. And you saying you're kind of just approaching it braggadociously and being like, "Have you heard?" Like, is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
yeah.
I think Esteban. Well, I mean, because even the innkeeper called him out as being dour. So I think not like not like snake oil salesman rolling into Amarillo with
Sure.
with shampoo, but more kind of actually just like depressed, sullen, like, oh, I can't believe we walked all the way from Paris to here, and not even a penny to show for it, and and then start the whole tale.
I'm into this a lot, actually. I will call for a test because
Oh, absolutely.
I really do think that, like, I can see, beyond just being like, oh, they don't bite the hook. That's not interesting. I do think there are like complications that could come of this. Like, either that's like the form of people being like other patrons being like, getting in a bit of a row over this, like
Mm-hmm.
being like, it's like, oh, I saw it, or maybe it's like some kind of like misbegotten remark or something like that. Like maybe someone who's been like casting a leering eye at these Nords is just being like, I fucking told you those Nords were no good. They're hiding Templars on their ship. Like it misinterprets the
Sure.
situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
see any number of things that could go wrong here. But I mean, this feels like such a street play. I just started reading Scott Lynch's The Lies of Locke Lamora. It feels like such a street thief tactic of like of fleecing someone, of like the misdirection and the fortune teller tactics, and knowing that's literally your background. I want to give you advantage from that. It's
Oh,
literally
okay.
your entire upbringing was being a thief on the streets. It feels like you probably ran this gambit a few times of like, get people to clear off by convincing them to go elsewhere for the sake of
Yeah.
a gig. What attribute and skill would be applied here?
I mean,
I mean, it's like
persuade
intellect.
and intellect.
Yeah, persuade and intellect
So,
is what makes the most sense to me.
yeah.
I'm super into that. You may definitely roll.
What difficulty before I roll?
Oh, I'm gonna say because they are one of them's pretty stoic, but one of them's also really drunk. One of them did espouse a lot of virtue about coin. I'm gonna say it requires a little bit of effort, so it'll be a 15.
Sure. Cool. So I'm looking for I've got a +5, so 10 on the dice is what we're looking
And you have
for.
advantage.
Yep. Oh my. 10, 7, and 8. So 10 and 8 are the higher. 18 plus 5 is 23.
Fan fucking tastic. You do it. Like, and you do it and you keep it like pretty contained, right? Like it's very much like these two. I think it's Ingvar, who's the one that like really like bites the hook here, right? And like slams his hands on the table and like just jabs a meaty finger at his companion Steinar, is that I said his name was, and it's just being like, I fucking told you this place was shit. It's being like, I can spend my money responsibly in better ways. And Steinar is getting up being like, yes, yes. I mean, it just, saying like, I don't understand any of the problems that your people are facing with this, but And if it gets us in good graces and it gets Ingvar a bit happier, might be worth poking into. What'd you say you saw, boy?
Oh, the Templars, the soldiers, well, they were. Now they're just runaways and heretics, is what they are. But and then I'll describe their ship back to them. We saw them. We saw them running off, and they got aboard the ship, and we weren't allowed to go. Of course, they won't allow us to go searching ships uh, without well, they just won't let us go aboard random people's ships to go searching for them. And even though we protested and told them, look, we saw them, they climbed aboard scurrilously like cats.
Novell meows for dramatic effect. And I think
Exactly.
yeah, they just fully buy it. And like they after like just a couple of like mutterings and just like paying for the last of their drinks, they're going, they're leaving. They just totally like wander out. Like Ingvar seems almost determined on this path of just being like, it's worth a look. Seiner's like, fine. I mean, fine, why not? Like I'd rather go to a bathhouse than this, but fine, let's go. And they leave. I think the barkeep afterwards would like come up to you and Torben and be like, that was very well handled. Aye. Place gets a bit rowdier, but thins out through the evening. Once things get properly quiet, you can have a corner of the tap room here. I don't offer blankets, I don't offer pillows. I have the benches and the chairs. You can sleep on the floor, but you're going to be relying on your own supplies. And no free food either.
God thanks you for your grace.
He just nods and grunts and just says, but I mean it. Any trouble, you're out of here.
I've had our fair share of it. You won't catch any trouble from us.
Does Elias return to the tavern at any point in the evening?
Yeah. I think when he returns, I mean, obviously drenched. I think the blood has kind of like washed away, or like he's good enough at killing that he doesn't need to go like full splash every time. I think when he returns, he looks like haggard and exhausted in like a very like mental and emotional way. And he just returns quietly. He'll pay back Estevao double of what he like used to pay for like those drinks for Alfonso. Um to sort of like almost like quietly non-verbally say like, hey, I got a shit ton of money now. Don't ask.
It's not a shit ton. It's a
For comparatively, it's a
yeah.
shit ton
Yeah.
now. Um
It's at least like enough to get you through like
a little bit,
like
yeah.
a couple days of some basic expenses, basically. Like
I wasn't imagining like it's enough for people to dangerous work for, right? Like,
yeah, that's a good way to put it. I
yeah.
like that. It's
Yeah,
enough for people to do dangerous work. I like that.
it's enough for people to try and spy on someone who could and did kill them. So
Yeah.
it's got to be somewhat worth it, is what I was imagining. Um, but yeah, I think he just kind of does that and sits down.
Where did you go? Where did you get that?
And then I think he pulls out the note and hands it to Torben.
Torben,
Your
who can't
friend.
read.
Wait,
I also know we were
Oh,
taught as
I
Templars.
thought we established that Torben couldn't read before. That may be me misremembering.
Oh,
Or maybe it's that he didn't read Latin. I think that was it.
yeah.
He didn't read Latin. That so yeah, no. So
Although he probably would read Latin, being a Templar.
at least maybe understand like some of the basics of it at least. But yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
But yeah, no, either way, you can read. Yeah, that's fine.
mhm.
Continue.
your friend, the fop.
No, someone else. They're taken care of.
Good. Very good. Well handled.
He
All
doesn't
right.
say anything. He just looks like he's kind of given up for today. And I think maybe if there's like still a drink on a table, I think he will just like when you say good, I think he finally like quietly just reaches out and drinks it.
I think Estevao, a little emboldened by what the innkeeper suggested, is now going to actually start actively going around the tavern patrons. And Estevao is probably a lot better than this that I am, but uh, ask around to see if there is in fact a smuggler in the Basilisk then who could get us out of Royam.
Asking around in like what way? Just like generally?
Yeah, well, on a macro scale, yeah, he's asking around, and again, I, Kevin, am not a criminal. I've never tried to
Sure.
smuggle
Yeah.
myself,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
but
Very
Estevao is,
specific
yeah, right.
disclaimer.
Um, but yeah, I think Estevao in my head, the way that this would work in a Dumas, Alexander Dumas novel would be, yeah, just like going around and like asking shady looking people, be like, hey, uh, and probably with a little bit of plausible deniability, much like a variant of what he just did,
Mhm.
looking for some Templars who might be trying to flee the city. Do you know of anybody who would have such services? And then, of course, if we do find one, then it's gonna be like, it's me.
Sure. I like it. I think I'm gonna make this on the test on the grounds that like because it's a den of shady thieves and thugs and ne'er do wells, and in that very Dumas way of like, oh, you could end up in trouble of like, you're looking for something. Yes, come over, like knife to the ribs. Like, what do you know? There's like a dramatic possibility of you falling into something through talking with people, or maybe someone misinterprets your words and starts a bar
Sure.
fight. This will
Yeah.
be our last action for the evening because the outcome of the, because I think things are beginning to wind down and we're gonna end the session here in a moment anyway. But yeah, I'm fine with capping off the evening by one last earnest attempt at the Basilisk's den. What attribute and skill are you angling for?
Uh, let's see. Good question. Casing a joint is not exactly something that is covered in the Templar Book of Order.
No, it is not.
Uh, I mean, knowledge, wisdom, education to overcome. Well, education, I don't think necessarily would nearly apply, but knowledge and wisdom, I think, sit under intellect. And
Insight, maybe? Is used to read into a situation, personality, or problem.
yeah, I
Yeah,
could
like
see that.
knowing the right people to like I kind of like suss out.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So it's less about the words you're saying to these people and more like looking through the crowds and you approaching, seeing it like the more representing in like a broad the people
Yes, yes,
you suss
yes.
out. Gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha.
And or even, asking people like, hey, who's, and gathering information of like, hey, uh who's the go-to guy around here? Oh, we don't know. We don't stick this isn't our normal tavern.
So
Okay, bye.
I will tell you right now, because if you, I think I'm going to establish this. If you roll this as a critical success, you will find the person you're looking for. Not, which again, it's not the smuggler; it's the contact that can get you, that can make that connection.
Right,
A
right, right.
regular success will give you will give you information about that contact, like or like
Sure.
whether it's like some kind of clue or degree of like information that'll help narrow it down later. It won't like you'll get useful information, but a critical, I'll just have to say that like one of the people you suss out is the person you're looking for.
Sure.
So you're going to do this with, you said what, you said
Uh
intellect.
Intellect and insight, I think.
Makes complete and utter sense to me because that,
Can
but
I
even that,
help?
you have a +3 in
Plus
insight.
three,
Three in
yeah.
insight.
You
Yeah.
certainly can. I will add that I, with this approach, that really does color the potential consequences because you're just sussing the people out, and it's not necessarily about the words you say. That makes the complication even more in the domain of like you suss out the right person, but the words, or you suss out a person, and you get into trouble because the conversation is tense or something like that. But yeah, so you can help Elias. But what is, well, depends on what helping looks like.
Yeah. I think we do sort of like have that moment where Elias just like sits there brooding in that, over that terrible drink. But then maybe like either Esteval, like you sort of like say what you were intended, or you get up and like try to do it. And I think Elia, like having just spotted that spy, right? And like sort of being on the alert for that kind of behavior, I think Elia is like, I think you're going out like alone around these people, but I'm sort of, sitting at the table doing, like that spy thing where I too am basically, you're asking people. I'm looking how others are reacting to you asking. And then I assume we have like some kind of like Templar because we would be used to like nonverbal communication over distances for military reasons that I can basically be like, back off, he's getting like, or that person just did a thing. Basically, like I'm keeping an eye on you and how other people react to you doing this.
I love it. What benefit will you impart?
What do you think of an advantage or reroll? If we want to, I feel like reroll is better if we want to crit, but I don't know.
Either one, because it's either 3 dice and take the best, or a success if there's a challenge between the two. A reroll, I feel
Oh, and by
like
the way, difficulty, I think, let me take a look at my, while you're talking, I'm going to give you the difficulty value too.
yeah, if it's a high difficulty, I think a reroll might just be better. If it's a I don't know. I don't know enough
I don't know,
theoretical
probability.
math. I think either one, the reroll
I
or the
think,
advantage
I think
are
it's challenging, so that's an 18.
uh
Oh,
maybe a
I'll
reroll
go.
is safer, because I mean a reroll feels like advantage plus a little bit more.
Hmm.
Unless for whatever reason it's like a 10 and a 9 and it's like, you don't really want to re-roll those, but you could also get an advantage and it's like a 10, 9, and a 5. So
Yeah, I'll give you a reroll.
cool. Awesome. What was the difficulty again?
18.
Okay. And I have a insight intellect of 7. So we're looking for 11 on the dice. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, continue. I was making a sound at myself. Ignore me. Continue.
Um, that is a 10 on the dice, 6 and 4. So I will re-roll the 4. Need 5 up. These re-rolls not doing me any favors. That's another 4. So 10 plus 7 is 17.
Okay. So that is one under. So that's so close. I want to think of a fun, dynamic way to frame this. Interesting. Because you're sussing people out. Hmm. Oh my goodness. I'm yeah. Oh, you could spend a faith point. Oh, wait, yeah. Esteval being the one person here who doesn't have faith points. Um, hmm. I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say that since that is so close to the 18, I'm going to say it counts as a success and that you get information, but it's still there's gonna be some kind of consequence here, although I'm still thinking of what that might be. And since we're at time, I might actually just we'll come back to this next time. Um, but I will end with at least something you're able to discern out. I think I'll just keep the consequence pretty simple, which is still roughly in the vein of what I was talking about, but because you were so close to success, it won't be as immediate in that you are suspicious. Like, this is a den of criminals and thugs. You're sussing out the right people, but like, this is kind of shared company. This is, you're not the smartest person in the room. It's kind of a lot of people here who come from the same background as you do. Like, there might be people here who are now giving eyes to you, being like, there is something suspicious about this. Like, something's not right. There's more to the meets the eye here. You're playing an angle and we can't see what it is yet. We might get to explore like a little bit of that suspicion in the role play that develops next time, but it's not enough to bar the gates of you making anything useful out of this. I think you will learn that the person you're looking for, this contact, this smuggler, because the smuggler, no one knows who the fuck that is here, but their contact, the very least, there are illusions made in across multiple conversations that tells you the contact is some kind of foreigner. They aren't French. They and foreigner in the context of like it's because like you can see like Germans and Italians and like a couple other people throughout the society, but it's like when they say foreigner, it's a little bit more it's more unusual than that. So there is someone who is from a place that not many come from in this area. It's not more specific than that right now, but that's what you're operating on at the moment. You're able to intuit that the person is foreign to these parts, is it comes from afar, one might say, but you don't actually have a measure of like how far that is. Just they're probably not one of the common types of foreigners you see around here. And I think that'll put a close. I think we can easily wrap up just by saying like, that encompasses the evening. Things are, conversations are made. Elias is sitting by himself. Torben's, doing his own thing. And then night will fall. You're able to rest a bit, though it's still kind of on edge. We will pick up next time the following day to see what leads can be followed up. So let's go to Stars and Wishes, everybody.
Yeah, I can start. Yeah, stars for Ben. I loved Torben trying to buddy up with the other Nordic people and it not working very well, and then Torben basically just being like, it's like being very pouty about it. And I also love how he just wants to kill people and he doesn't get to do it, and it's very sad for him. But I especially like sort of loved seeing that side of Torben and getting to see him like try to reconnect there or like some moment going on. I feel it's very sad that it didn't work out for him the way that he wanted. Um, for Kevin, yeah, I love how Estevao just disappears whenever Elia and Torben are fighting. Like he has such like just gonna blend in with the background vibes whenever that happens. Like he's just like just pretend I don't exist. Like I just stop existing in that moment. And it's like such a friendship vibe where, like you have these two friends that kind of butt heads a lot. And there's like this one guy who's always just like, please stop. Please don't embarrass me in public. I thought that was just a very funny dynamic that was added. Um, I mean, love Nivelle, love everything that you narrated for Nivi. And I love just like how you narrated at the end of like just being consistently like trying to find this person and trying to get in that world and like how Estevao has been dealing with that. I thought that was a very interesting insight in him. For Alex, I love the bartender. Nothing bad can ever happen to him. Um, I thought he was a great character. He had like that real, like, yeah, bartender of a seedy bar vibe where he was just like, listen, I know you're up to some shit, just don't do it in my bar. Like, you wanna get into trouble, that's fine. Everyone here does, but I pay for these shares. So fuck you, really. I thought that was fun, and I especially liked sort of how it developed from him being like just very much like here's your drinks, whatever. And then being more and more sort of like intrigued, but like, what is your deal? What are you doing in my bar? I don't like that. I don't know, and I need to know. I thought that was very fun. Um, I thought that the scene with the spy, very spy, saying exactly the wrong things, thinking that he was nailing it. Because the whole time Elia was like, if you truly thought I was a man of God, then you wouldn't be selling me out. Like that, no, what? No, the logic does not logic.
One of my favorite, sorry to interrupt you, just like one of my favorite pieces of like GM advice, I think I've like is a thing I already kind of knew, but just seeing it written down like was I admired was in the mothership, warden's operation manual, which is being like, since there's no skill for discerning if like, there's not, you don't roll to tell if someone's lying to you. It's like if someone's lying to you, play them very clearly lying. And I'm like, that's fun. I just wanted to play a character who is so very clearly not trustworthy. So I'm glad you picked up on
that. Yeah. And for like 1 second, I was like, should I like straight up ask the question, like, do I believe it? And I was like, you know what? I don't want that to be something that the GM tells me because ultimately it's about, does Elia believe it? Right? Like, does Elia believe it? And it doesn't matter if this man is telling the truth or not. It's, does Elia believe it? And he was like, no, I do not. You're clearly like, you're trying to flatter me. And even if you don't sell me out, which maybe you're going to sell out the next Templar. And that is still like something that he cannot allow. Yeah, I thought that was a great moment. And very tragic at the end, I think. Wishes. Yeah, I mean, I do want Torben to fight someone. I want to give this man what he wants, which is to punch somebody in the face and look very hot doing it. So I do hope that Torben gets to live his dream life. I don't hope that Elia is involved because he's at 5 hit points. But very interested to see where this goes. And yeah, I'm interested to see how this fucking noble fop is gonna um blackmail Elia because I think that's like a really fun angle for Elias to still have these noble connections, but where he is like very low on the pecking order and like how he has to deal with that.
Yeah, no, this was fun. I am first of all, I'm just glad that we got to pick back up because we took last week off. Um, because I'm very fond of this of these sessions with y'all. I was looking forward to doing the basilisks, there we go, den adventure. With what y'all said last time in mind, which was that like, okay, you kind of, it was on the wish list. It was y'all kind of wanted to like spend a bit more time in town like dealing with these things and have it not just be like a quick outing. And while I don't feel like I extended anything, I was really just like sitting back and like admiring the pace things. It felt very like we had the very dramatic moments following the fight with the other knight, and then this is kind of like a more like low key episode to just like briefly catch your breath, especially when you guys are still so wounded. And I loved everyone's contributions towards creating some characters at the tavern. I had some characters for the tavern, but like those two Nords were great. I love that. So like that Ben immediately engaged with them because especially Ben, you started that angle from being like, this looks like the meanest person in the room, but then someone else offered another suggestion and you're like, those are the people I'm going to approach because, and that was those like two NPCs that now exist in the world. And then that led to an angle with Esteban distracting them. I thought that was great. I just really kind of like loved what we set up together here. Yeah, getting to see Elias do the chasing was really fucking cool. I love that you carried through and ran him through with the blade. That was awesome. That was the outcome I was hoping for because I was just like, yes, this is dramatic as fuck. Run him through because he's not a threat. But the second you were like, I'm gonna wait for him, I just sat back and I thought, yeah, the spy would run. The spy, you are visibly a Templar. He's gonna run. And I'm glad he did because that was a fun little scene. I felt like we made more roles like that came out naturally, like just from the interactions, but it didn't feel like, oh, we're just, it didn't feel like, and that's, in the 5e way of like, are we doing a role for everything? It really did like have like a moment where I felt like I really had to think, is this interesting? Like, I just got to say with it, does this lead to interesting narratives one or the other? As the game encourages. I felt like it did. I felt like we like everyone had really cool ideas that they approached with. Yeah, Torben was a bit on the back foot this session, but even then I loved his interactions with the Nords. I loved his little contributions to the conversation with Alphonse of being like, we're very capable at killing, and then like getting up to be like, I'm gonna go kill him. And he's like, nope, don't stop, get down. That was really good. I loved all of that. Yeah. Wishes, I guess. I genuinely, this is more of a hope, but I hope y'all are able to get in touch with the spy network. It's difficult too because this one in particular has kind of gone to ground. But if you do, I mean, it'll have benefits. I'm also like really hoping to see. That's not really a wish. I was gonna say like I was hoping just to see like more stuff for like getting back to showing off some of the pursuers more, but that's mostly just I think of me being like, okay, well I will set that up. So that's not really a wish. And also this isn't a wish, but this thing I'm promising is like actually I do want to start introducing one of the optional mechanics from the Faith and Fear book, which adds a couple of new ways to use faith points. And they don't broadly apply to all the characters. It's just that they apply to narratively characters. They're called acts of faith from Faith and Fear. And I'm not going to introduce all of them at once. I'm only going to introduce ones that like make sense in the narrative. But there are two that stuck out to me, which was acts of foresight and acts of sacrifice. And I'm like, those seem interesting. And currently in the narrative, both of them apply to Torben. So I'm like, I kind of want to like not like pivot, but lean into in a different direction the stuff I started to set up with that dream you had. Cause I the acts of foresight thing caught my eye. And I was like, can he commune with his dream lady? Ooh, this is an interesting idea. I don't know. So I'm thinking about introducing those next time, or at least set them up to begin happening. Say that to me.
I'll go. It was fun to get a tavern scene with these characters, and it didn't work out as Torben would have hoped. But I like that Torben is feeling this need to prove himself after getting his ass handed to him, and he just never gets the opportunity. And so it's just stewing in the back of his head. Maybe he actually is this shit. And it was fun to get a bit of social dynamic scenes with everybody and everyone approaching things as they usually do, except for Elia, who put himself in a terrible position. We're going to have a talk about Elia being the one carrying the cup, because that is not proving to be a good idea.
I had the extremely real possibility that I was like, what if he loses the cup? But then you rolled well. Because I was going to say that if you had failed the chase roll, I was going to be like, you lost the cup.
I felt like as soon as you mentioned, as soon as Jazzy talked about how the cup was being stored, I think I saw a thought bubble pop up over Alex's head that said pickpocket.
The GM will remember this for later.
That's absolutely not why I said it and didn't say like, oh, he stuck it under layers of clothing. No, no, my man is trusting God.
Yeah, that'll work out every time. That's I'm looking forward to that being a problem. Every time we get to see Esteval try and take a orthogonal approach to something is great. Elias just murking the spy, deserved, and Torben's so proud of him. Yeah, this is good. I loved the bartender. I loved how he was interested but not that interested, and helpful but not that helpful. And it was a good balance. And yeah, nothing will happen to him because Torben would die before it did. Wishes. I need to see what's going on with the fop, Alphonse, and probably kill him.
All right, and I will land the plane here. There was some great moments in today's session. Torben had some just killer lines. I wrote down the exchange between Elia and Torben of talking about alcohol. It makes you feel better. It makes you feel less. Just 10 out of 10. Great writing. And then Torben a little bit later talking about the Nords. Worse, they're boring. It was just a really fun little moment for Elia. Love a good foot chase. Always love a good foot chase. Absolutely integral in this kind of pulpy story. Why it got to be hot though? I don't. I Those are choices. But you know, we love them. If you're gonna do a foot chase, why not have it end hotly? So you know, why not? Anyways, yeah, I the moment of having, you know, that meta knowledge of like there's somebody in the tavern with you, there is a spy in the tavern with you, it turns it into the Inglorious Bastards bar scene every time And it's always so fun to have that kind of like that tension just kind of simmering in the background. Um, but an interesting thing happened today where I like this sort of switch flipped in my head, and I think it was either somewhere in the discussion with the bartender or somewhere in that area, where it's like, cool, yeah, the story is not going to happen to us. We have to take active approaches to getting ourselves through these situations. If we want to get into the spy network, we have to actively pursue that. If we want to um, find this contact, we have to actively pursue those things. We can't just like sit here and drink. And so that was a moment of paradigm shift for me, where yeah, and then suddenly I'm like, all right, cool, let's break some shit. What's the worst that can happen? The failed rolls and the GM moves, like cool. So yeah, that was an important moment today's session. Wanted to call out. And yeah, I love the bartender. Bartender was super fun and like changed or like adjusted the broke my expectations in a really neat way in terms of being like, yeah, like Ben said, he cares but not too much, interested but not too much, helpful but not too much. Um, so that was really fun.
Those are
Wishes,
the
yeah,
best bartenders in my personal life experience.
absolutely. Um, so wishes then, yeah, I don't want to let the thread on the spy network stuff fall. So I think definitely I'm gonna have Esteval continue pursuing that for however long, and if we get out of Royan first, so be it. But I think I'm gonna have him angle a little bit harder in that direction next session, and be a little bit more active in trying to suss out that thread, even if it means getting to 6 pursuit points. So, uh, other than that, some civilization downtime would be interesting. But obviously we're in a hostile area, so we wouldn't get the full benefits of that. But we're sitting on some advancement points. Need to get through those. But yeah, however that looks like and shakes out would be uh interesting given the fictional positioning that we're in. So
Yeah, there are tables for determining like the safety that are not required to roll on because I was like, Royan is too close to Paris to be anything but dangerous to you guys. But I am hoping that like I'm going to make more use of those tables in the future to be like, fuck if I know, let's roll. Or maybe this town is safe. Yeah, let's throw you guys a bone here. I'm interested in seeing like I will note though, this is the thing I'm not going to talk about until like in depth, just because I don't want to front load anything. But the way that spy networks work is they have like three things you can do with them. You can either, well, you can use them. Yeah, you can. They have like things. It's like you can use them for information, you can use them for supplies, or you can use them as like a safe house. And I forget. I know one of those things gets like I think it's the supplies one. I could be wrong though. Allows you to gain an additional downtime action. In that area for that time in a place that is dangerous. I'd be like, that's the only way you can do downtime here is if the spy network is helping you. So that's a possible angle of being able to if you do find those people to contact. So
yeah.
That one, I will say, unlike what you were saying. Sorry, I'll let you continue just a second. Unlike what you were saying about like the plot's not going to come to you. You have to actually pursue things. Things like the spy network. As long as you give me like the broad approach, I'm like, we're going to do this with a roll. And if you succeed, you find it, and we'll summarize that. But it's not interesting to like to follow the breadcrumb trail of getting into contact with them. Like if you have like a narrative idea for like how you might approach it, I'm like, oh cool, that'll give you advantage. Sure. But in situations like the bar, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to need you to be a bit more proactive. And I think we have like a really nice balance of like when we zoom in and zoom out of scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. And then yeah, last wish. I think it was already mentioned, but or something like it. But I really like that sort of high mythos. Supernatural is kind of the wrong word, but that sort of like uh possible divine intervention. But yeah, supernatural elements or supernatural adjacent sort of stuff like the dreams that Torben's been having. Um, we've gotten one gift from playing for 4 sessions, and so I'm definitely keen to be like, let's start getting weird.
I definitely have my eyes on all the supernatural elements of being like, as I ramp things up, because I have like the tone in mind where I'm like, yes, I want to get real supernatural, but it's like if I were to draw like a radius around Paris, I'd be like, at what point are we far enough away from the starting point for things to get properly weird? And I will say, don't worry, I definitely have my foot like
Yep.
on the clutch. So I'm like, all right, I want to get these things going. But yeah, hopefully things like if I introduce the acts of faith, that might help.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's what I got.
Any other stars
I
or
have,
wishes? Oh, go
yeah, I
ahead.
have one extra wish before I forget. I do still want Elia, sort of in the vein of like we have to actively pursue the things that we want. I do want Esteban to like investigate Elias's family. So that was like a conversation that I had in mind, but it like given like Elias's discomfort with the tavern, it was like this is not the moment where he's gonna have a heart to heart with Esteban and be like, "Hey, man, I said some things that maybe, you know." But I do think that they should have that conversation, and I do think that it should maybe not be like too late into it, because that it's kind of weird to be like, hey, remember that thing that I said like 3 months ago? So yeah, and I think sort of given the way that this session ended, I feel like it hardened Elia a little bit in a way. So that could be like an interesting follow-up to sort of be like, yeah, sure, let's see what my family was up to, I guess.
I'm down to see that. Make a note. I feel like I was gonna actually throw like one last thing out there, but I just totally blanked on it. Oh, I was gonna say, and don't worry, I haven't forgot about Murder Wife. I have ideas and plans for Murder Wife. It's just that I know when I want to introduce the Murder Wife. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten
But why is it not right now? Why is she
because
not
you're
here?
not in the territory that it would make sense for her to appear yet.
Okay, so we
Um,
need to leave right now.
get the
We
fuck
need
out
to
of the
go. We
city.
need to get the fuck
Jazzy
out.
just has Elias run into the woods,
He
and
just
it's
runs and keeps running.
I'm
mhm,
sorry, we're not waiting for a boat. We're gonna walk all the way to
hoofing it.
Lisbon.
We're just booking
I'm
it
not gonna
until we
find Murder Wife
find
on
a
a
murder
boat.
wife.
Yeah, I saw in the
Come on
chat
now.
like what would you say, fop guy instead of murder wife today. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, any other stars or wishes from anyone? All right, then I will see you all next time.